All right, let's go ahead and get started. We'd like to welcome everyone here to our city council meeting and all those who are watching on TV. I've asked Chad Dargal to give us our motivational message and prayer. So, Chad.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd just like to take a real quick minute. Talking about the last month in July, we've had the opportunity to remember our independence of this great nation, and we also, during our celebration of Fiesta Days, we remember those pioneers who came to Utah before us. Recently I had the opportunity to read a book that was of the signers of the Declaration of Independence, 56 of them. My interest was in just finding out and knowing who these men were. Most of them, some of them you'd recognize the name because they were famous as our founding fathers, but most of them you would not. What I found out was a large share of them, of course, when they were younger, they entered apprenticeships to learn a trade, and then later on educated themselves both here and abroad in England and overseas, and become educated by themselves. Many of them were merchants and businessmen, professors and teachers, lawyers, and they had educated themselves. When it came that time to sign the Declaration of Independence, which was the step breaking away from King George and the British rule, these men signed that Declaration of Independence, knowing that by doing so it would put their life and put prices on their heads. Many of them, knowing this, signed that Declaration of Independence, and through the next years, of course, the Revolutionary War was still going on. They were wealthy, they were landowners, they had businesses. Most of them lost their businesses, end up dying broke, living in somebody else's land. Their lands were taken away from them, their homes were burned, in many cases by the British government. I'm grateful for these 56 signers who, and many, many others that went before us, had the courage and the foresight to see a nation that was taking birth, and that they stood their ground and gave up everything for this country, that we could start a nation that was going to be this great nation that we live in, the United States of America. Yes, we have our problems. I just wanted to bring that to mention that we remember some of these founding fathers and what they sacrificed. They gave up life, liberty, in order to make it better for us. And I'm grateful for them. Of course, went on to the Constitution and this great nation, the birth of. These signers, it was interesting to learn about who they were. They were regular people who worked hard to be successful, and they had the foresight to see what was coming and that it was bigger than them. They were all men of God, which was impressed on me as I read each one of their short histories. Some of them didn't have very long, some of them had huge history. And I'm grateful for the opportunity that I had to learn a little more about them, and I just wanted to bring that to your attention, that these are the shoulders we stand on, that they bore it pretty well, and I'm grateful for that. I'd like to offer a prayer now. Our dear Father in heaven, we humbly come before Thee at this time as we meet together here as a council in this great city of Spanish Fork. We are grateful for the blessing that we have of living in this country and living in this land, in this city. We ask that Thy Spirit be upon us as we discuss the issues and the problems of this city, that we may do so with open mind, that we may have the foresight to see to the future and those things that will be benefit to this city. We are grateful for the amenities and the blessings that we have in this city. We are grateful for those safety police officers, ambulance, and firemen that stand ready to serve and have served this community well. And we are so grateful for them and their time and their efforts. We ask a blessing upon each one of them. And we ask and say these things in the name of Thy Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. I've asked Councilman Mendenhall to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Please rise and repeat the pledge after me.
I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, I'd like to turn a little time over to Councilmember Beck.
Yes, I would like to invite Miss Utah's outstanding teen, Audrey Talbot, up to the microphone. Okay, first of all, am I pronouncing your name correctly?
Azure, yeah.
Azure. Okay. I want to just open my notes just a second. Okay. I just want to, we love recognizing youth in our community, and you have done an outstanding job this past year. So we just want to recognize you as you just came home from Miss United States.
Yeah, Miss America's Outstanding Teen.
Okay, Miss America's
in Florida.
Okay, and so you just got home from that. You've already served your year for Miss Utah. So I just want to read this. Let me put my glasses on. And it's Azure.
Yeah.
Okay. Azure has spent the last 10 months serving the communities in our state by focusing on suicide prevention and awareness through her involvement with the Hope Squads of Utah and the Safe Utah app. She's been invited by state legislatures to act as the teen spokesperson for the app and has amazing plans for the near future implementing the app. She also has worked with Mascots for Miracles, Children's Miracle Network hospitals, and especially for athletes. Through her involvement and dedication to helping students find resources for suicidal thoughts and alternatives. She has also traveled for humanitarian services to Vietnam, helping in a special needs orphanage. All of these experiences have been balanced with her commitment to the Spanish Fork High School drill team, maintaining her grades, and membership of the National Honor Society. So we just want to thank you, but I want to ask you, what has been one of the best experiences of this past year?
Of this past year, definitely working with the Hope Squad in my high school. That's how it all started.
Okay.
My platform started with the high school that I was at, and I just love the Hope Squad. Our counselors do an amazing job, and so that's what I've
So will you continue to do that?
Yeah, most definitely.
Because you'll be a junior, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we just want to extend our gratitude, and we have
Thank
a gift
you.
from the mayor and
Oh my
council.
gosh.
It's just a small token of our appreciation in representing our city so beautifully. Thank you. Yes.
Yes, you can. Crowd in here.
You have to document it.
There you go.
Thank you.
Oh, it
Thank
should
you.
work. Nice job. We really appreciate our youth and all that they do here in our city, and thank you for representing so well. All right, let's move on down to public comments. Anyone that'd like to come and address the mayor or the council, feel free to come right up and talk to us. State your name. I know, we don't know either.
I want to get a picture with the Queen. All right, it's worth all the time coming down here like that. Absolutely. I just wanted to come and thank the council, city councilman, and Miss Beck for the opportunity I had of this last 10 days down here in the celebration. It was a ball. Had a great time. And I want to thank Mike and Angie, who were the volunteers. They've done a great job, and it takes many, many volunteers to do this. And I want to thank our grandparents. My grandpa, I know he was interested in the riding club, and he got killed in a train wreck in 1949. But I used to go up to the home here up on 150 East, 2nd North, and he's always have his horses out there, and he's always grooming them, and he was so proud of those animals. And that's when, in the 49s and 50s, that's when they got to going with the parade and all that celebration. And I want to thank all the city councils from the 40s and 50s to see ahead that they could have this big celebration every year. And every council, I was in the council few years ago, but anyway, we wanted it to be better than the last one, and so I know you guys wanted it to be a lot better than what we brought here, and it's just really got a lot better, and I just want to thank all of you for the hard work. I want to thank all the volunteers. It took 400 or 500 volunteers, all the venues you guys had out here. It was really neat, and we only had a little bit of rain that one night, and so who was saying their prayers has done a good job. We appreciate that. But anyway, it was a great time. I want to thank you all for that experience. It's been a great time. So,
Thank you, Paul.
you bet.
Thank you, Paul, for representing again. Hey, we have the young and the almost old representing Spanish here. Anyone else would like to go and address the council? Seeing none, I would go to an agenda request. Diane Garcia. And you can state your name, even though I did.
Diane Garcia.
There we go. Thank you.
What do I push on here? Do I push just the forward button?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So I just wanted to give you guys a quick report on the Thompson Century Farm Firefly Tours for 2018 so that you can have some of that information. So the farm has been in our family since 1852. That's the line that it goes. We got Century Farm status from the Department of Agriculture and the Farm Bureau, and for it being in the same farm, same family. Samuel Thompson first settled in 1852, came here via Mormon Battalion, California. He was in Sutter's Fort when gold was discovered, and then came and settled in Spanish Fork. So some of the attraction that people find from the Firefly tours goes beyond the fireflies, and that is the actual historical buildings that they get to see on the farm. So we have the old Red Rock house. All of that rock was cut out of Spanish Fork Canyon and brought by horse and wagon by my grandfather and great-grandfather. And then we have the original barn and chicken coops and everybody's favorite, the two-seater outhouse. And the granary, blacksmith shop, coal shed. You get to see dads and grandfathers walk their kids around and explain what a coal shed was used for and what the granary is. So it's really quite cool to see that. And then it shows, you know, the farm grew hay, barley, oats, cattle, and produce. My grandfather, who was George Elmore, but everybody called him Elmore, so some of the old-timers still refer to him Elmore. He used to dig basements with his team of horses. He did not get a tractor until the late 1960s because he preferred to use his horses. And many of the old homes in Spanish Fork, the basements were dug with his team of horses. And he also dug 2 of the bank's basements on Main Street that he did just with his team of horses. So we have lots of wildlife on the farm. I set up trail cameras and I post those on the Facebook page, and I post videos and photos of some of the wildlife that we get. That's just a taste of what it is. The top photo is my dad and some relatives pheasant hunting. There are lots of pheasants out there along with quail. And then that great horned owl I just got this last September that was sitting right above me, and I looked up and he was very quiet. So now on to the main attraction, the fireflies. The fireflies have always been on the farm. They do not migrate. They do not leave. They are on the farm year-round. So they need marsh, wet soil. They need grasses. They need darkness and undisturbed soil. So we do cut and bale our hay, but we do not cultivate as far as planting corn or anything like that in those fields. So the life cycle of the fireflies, so the blinking that you see the end of May, all of June, and into July is the mating season. So that's their communication. The females sit on the tall grass, and the males, you know, do all the work. They have to fly by, and they blink at the females. If the females like what they see, they blink back. And then they hook up later, and the female lays her eggs in the soil. The eggs stay in the soil for 3 to 4 weeks. They hatch their larvae. When they become larvae, they already have the bioluminescent chemical in their body, so they are glowworms. So these glowworms stay in the soil for 1 to 2 years before they then go into the pupa stage and back into the adult stage. So right now, if you went out into our field late at night, you would see glowworms. They are very active right now. So they are there all year round. BYU and University of Utah came out in 2015 and took samples because for some reason biologists didn't know that we had fireflies. They're just discovering that and they're just studying them extensively. So they have identified 2 species in my field. There are 6 species identified in the state of Utah and over 2,000 in the world. So we have a little slice of magic there. So when people show up, they meet up at the campfire and we roast marshmallows and s'mores. And then we go out into the field, and then they get to enjoy the experience out there. People sign up on the Facebook page. The tours are free. I have limited it to 30 to 40 a night. The first year I did it, I had up to 70, and it just kind of ruins the experience. It's a more intimate experience when it's smaller. This last year, I had over 1,300 people get to experience it during the last week of May and into the first week of July, all of June. There are over 4,000 on the wait list. So, yeah, they're not all going to get in next year. But we're going to see what we can do. So families, couples, individuals, I have scout groups, homeschooling groups, had people from Spanish Fork that have grown up here all their life, did not know there were fireflies here. So they were super excited to be able to experience that. Had a couple that were visiting their family from Hawaii, so they were excited that they got to come. So magical. If you've ever seen fireflies, it is a magical feeling. It's like you feel the magic. Like, how can this bug do this? So I had parents tell me that, oh, well, we'll schedule for 8 people, but we might only have 6 because our 2 teenagers probably won't want to come. They get their teenagers out there, and their teenagers are the last ones to leave. So teenagers have really enjoyed this. I've had many teenagers come up to me and tell me that they feel peace when they're out there. Very strong. See, I get emotional. I get a lot out of this. I had 1,300 people I got to know, and I got to experience an emotional change and an event with them, so I do get emotional about it. I had one family, about the healing anxiety, I had one family show up, and the father, I said, oh, you're one short. And she said, well, he's still coming, but he's coming in his own vehicle. He's a veteran, and he has anxiety, and he wanted to come alone because he wanted to have that escape in case his anxiety flared up. So he came. We had a small group of 30 that night. When he sat through the whole, I give a presentation of the history of the farm. We got out in the field. He got to catch fireflies with his kids, chase fireflies. Before he left, he came up and gave me a big hug and said that was exactly what he needed. So this is very, very healing for a lot of people, and we have it right here. So there's a lot of value in this. I had a grandfather bring his grandson, and it was just the 2 of them, and he said, that's all his grandson talks about now. That was his time with Grandpa, and forever they will have that memory that they chased fireflies and caught fireflies together. So I've had families tell me that their children keep talking about it and that it is even better than Lagoon. So something to think about. I am worried about the future of the fireflies. I do not want to lose that. The big thing would be light pollution as the river bottoms gets developed. Light pollution interferes with their communication while they're mating. If they can't mate, there's no future generations. So it is very important for us to consider the light pollution down there. Years to come. This is a unique and rare resource for our community. This cannot be recreated. They cannot be transplanted. They cannot be moved. People ask me all the time, can I take some fireflies and start my own colony at my house? Well, it just doesn't work that way. You have to have the certain environment, the right environment. They've been here for over 100 years. They have the right environment. They're very sensitive. There were people who lived by the fairgrounds who used to sit in their bedrooms at night and look out, and there were fireflies all around the fairgrounds. They're gone now. They're not around the fairgrounds anymore, most likely because of light pollution. There are people who posted on the Facebook page that there were fireflies in North Park, and their moms would take them and they'd go watch fireflies at North Park, and that's where Costco is now, so they're gone there. So, it's something that we should really hold on to. Every night, the last thing I say to a group during the presentation is, this is your night for everyone to be a child, so go chase a firefly and embrace the magic. Thank you.
Thank you. appreciate that very much. My wife's from Indiana, and so that was the first time I had ever seen fireflies when I went back there, and they're all in their cornfields. So it's kind of nice to know that we have them right here in Spanish Fork. So thank you for the effort that you're doing and all the work you're doing. We'll do our best to help keep them here. Okay, item C, we're going to move that to next council meeting. Council comments. Councilman Argyle.
Thank you, Mayor. I don't have anything this evening.
Councilman Gordon.
Mayor, I wanted to invite up Heather Youd from the Chamber. She wanted to talk about a few things.
Thank you. I just have a couple things really quick. Our business of the month for August is Summit Motorsports. We celebrated with them on Monday. So they have a great business. They not only do sales for motorcycles and UTVs, side-by-sides, that type of thing, but they also do rentals and they sell equipment, that type of thing. So if you're looking for something fun to do, go check them out. Also, we have IHC doing their hospital groundbreaking. I hope all of you can make it. It's Monday at 3. Our new networking luncheon this month will be on the 15th down at the Justice Center. We're going to have a representative from the city come and speak to business owners and about the new RAP tax. So, and then the last thing I have, I would like to invite all of you to, we have a Utah County Policy Maker Dinner on August 30th.
Thank you.
Thanks, Heather.
Thank you, Heather.
Heather continues to do a wonderful job. Her and I and Councilwoman Beck were able to sit in on a meeting where we were planning some of the future of our Main Street. And if you look out here in the lobby, there's a couple of renderings of things that have been discussed in terms of bike traffic and what we do for the future of our Main Street to make it more walking friendly and bike traffic and things like that as we plan with UDOT. And so that was a good meeting, and other than that, that's all I have, Mayor.
Great. Councilman Mendenhall.
Thank you, Mayor. Echo, first of all, what Paul Christensen had to say about Fiesta Days. Thank you to all the volunteers that make that happen. Such a fun time to be in town and see everybody. It was my 20-year reunion, believe it or not, Mayor. You can't believe that. But
you're old.
I had high school classmates come in and haven't been to Spanish Fork in a while. Some of them, some of us never made it out, but they all commented on how fun of a time it is to come in and spend the time with their family, and they do realize how big of an event that is put on by a lot of the volunteers. So it was an awesome event. I saw you've got some pictures that I sent you, Scott. The ones of, I saw some Fit City t-shirts while I was around. You don't have that one, do you? In the parade, I saw some active and healthy stuff. There's one, Seth might recognize her. But I saw her, I saw another kid in the parade that was wearing the Fit City t-shirt. That one right there. See, so I threw him some extra candy, made sure he got loaded up. But it was fun to see some of the active and healthy groups represented there with Fiesta Days at the different locations. This one right here, obviously the Youth City Council. I thought this was really cool, whoever came up with the t-shirts that they were wearing. But our Youth City Council Mayor, Sterling, his hashtag of lift everyone, of some of the great work he did, which you're probably aware of trying to help people be recognized during Valentine's Day last year and making sure everybody got a Valentine at the high school. So Sterling's our Youth City Council Mayor, and I thought that was a good message to make sure everybody saw the good work that the Youth City Council does for us. The next one, Tyler Beglin there up at the Oaks. That's my boy Nash with his back directly to us. But that's a whole lot of group of kids. In the green there is the youth golf team that Tyler helped out. I am happy to report that that's Payson golf team in the dark blue. The other kids scattered around are from Riverside and from Springville as well. guess who won?
There should be any
Yeah,
question.
they won. They won that match, but they won all the matches during the year. They had about 5 matches, and I just wanted to publicly thank Tyler. These kids are anywhere from 11 to 14 years old that got to come out and participate in this golf experience, and I've let my boy know, and the other kids know, the other girls and boys know from all over the place there, that when I was 12 and lived up next to the golf course, it was a sport that, man, if you could pay and just not get yourself, looked pretty gruffly at the old guys that like to go up and golf, then you could navigate your way and maybe play a little bit of golf. But it's changed. It's changed to where Tyler has taught these young folks how to respect the game, how to play the game, how to keep score, how to be honest with yourself, how to improve, but also how to take care of the course. And so this young crop of kids, which, yeah, is something Brandon should have learned a long time ago, right?
That's why I
Never replaces his divots. But these kids do. And
doesn't know how to keep score either.
yeah, the score's wrong. Just so impressed with Tyler and Ryan and the whole golf course staff, the way they've brought up a young crop of golfers that know how to do good and know how to don't make the rest of the golfing public mad while they're doing it. So great job by Tyler. Active and Healthy Committee, we've had a couple of meetings since our last council meeting, some really good things going on there. I wanted to let people know of this meeting. It's posted on our Facebook page, but there's Susan Chapman, Kai, Heidi, and Kim are the 3 on the left there, and they're from Move Utah, which talking about some of the especially with the air that we have right now, some of the alternative ways that we can get from A to B inside the city. They are focused, it's a UDOT division that focuses on being able to get people inside the city from A to B safely on their bikes, either biking or walking. They're excited to team up with the Active and Healthy group and look at some of those solutions. Look at what Brandon talked about of Main Street, and look at those plans of bike lanes on different streets that maybe they're not on now, but also sharing data. They've got a wealth of data, including Strava, if any of you fitness people that like to track your trips on bikes and walks with Strava. They have access to all that data that can show us inside the city where people are going most, and how we can improve those trips for our residents. So we're excited to keep going with those folks, and excited to report some other encouraging events that'll happen with them. We gave them Fit City t-shirts. The other item talking about air, if you guys have seen the city's Facebook page today that they shared along with the Active and Healthy page, it was not only a red day, which is extremely unhealthy to be out there breathing the air, but it was a purple day. I didn't even know you could get to purple, but it was purple, which is worse, which means is the equivalent that if you're out there exercising in that air, you are physically smoking unfiltered cigarettes. While,
Why did you tell me?
Yeah, I should have told you and Mrs. Mayor this morning, sorry. But you did a net effect. If you're running in that, you're doing a net effect worse to your body than what you think you're getting exercise when it's a red day. So those air quality monitors that are on the bottom side of the city, on the west side of the city, the lower part of the city, and on the east side of the city, again, we were just in a bad pocket that if you looked at the whole state today, we were red and purple, and that was red and purple we didn't want to be. But with the Sanpete fires and the West fires kind of coming together, they came together in the wrong place in Spanish Fork today. So you can go to KSL. If you Google air monitors, you're going to only see one in Provo. But if you go to KSL and their weather section, you'll see air quality monitors. And the other website is Purple Air.
PurpleAir.com.
PurpleAir.com. There's probably a link on our city's website that you can get there, and you can monitor how the air is on the west side of Spanish Fork and how the air is on the east side of Spanish Fork, which is really important to your family's health. So check that, especially in these next few days until we get some wind that can maybe take this terrible air away from us. my last thing, Mayor, really quick. This is District Governor Leckman, Scott Leckman, that the mayor and I were privileged to meet today at the Rotary meeting. He is the district governor for the Rotary organization, which means he's all over the state of Utah for all the different Rotary clubs. We have a great Rotary club in Spanish Fork that the mayor assigns one of us to be a member of. I'm lucky to be a member of that club this year. This guy, and the mayor could confirm this, is an accomplished surgeon up at the University of Utah, a worldwide renowned surgeon that gave a good speech today about doing good. The pin I have on me is the Rotary motto this year that says, "Be the inspiration." It's upside down. You can't read it. Be the inspiration, which is a good message that he brought to us today. If you can zoom in on that picture, maybe not that picture. It's a different picture that I took. Yeah, there you go. His message today was spot on for the volunteer organizations, not just the Rotary, but the Chamber that we've already heard from, and the Kiwanis, which is another great volunteer organization inside the city. This one really stood out to us Rotarians today, that optimists and pessimists die the exact same death, but they live very different lives. The Rotary is about doing good, and along with all the volunteer organizations in the community, I would encourage citizens that constantly send us emails and call us about how to get involved. Please get involved in one of those volunteer organizations. They will literally change your life with the opportunities that you can serve and get back a whole lot more than you even put into it. So that was a great opportunity to be with that gentleman today, and the mayor as well. And that's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilman Scott.
Mayor, just a couple of small things. It's already been mentioned, just a great thanks to the city, the citizens, the volunteers, the rodeo committee, Fiesta Days committee, everyone who put on. What a great celebration. A lot of my co-workers up in Orem are aware of it. Some of them have come down to the rodeo for many years with their family. Talking with one in particular, he said, "Oh yeah, we don't miss it." They come, not that Orem's that far away, but they come from Orem every year to the Spanish Fork Rodeo. A lot of buzz about the fifth night, the Extreme Bulls Championship. If you haven't gone on to get your tickets, you might want to do so soon. But just a great celebration, and very well received, not just within our community, but from around and without our community. So tremendous thanks and kudos for everyone involved with that. At the animal shelter, normal operations there, they have had a cooling system that they're bidding and that they need to replace. They've been working with fans. With a lot of animals pent up, it's something that's a much more pressing need. So they're working through and getting that replaced rather than patchwork to repair it. But they do have the budget for that, and so there's nothing that will come specifically from the member cities for that. And then last night there was a night out. I'm not sure, Chief, quite what to call it. Maybe that is what you call it, but down at North Park, we had the EMS crews, police crews, they offered hot dogs to kids and families that went. And talking with Chief at one point tonight, it was over 800 hot dogs that they had passed out. So I don't know if I'm taking Scott's thunder, sorry. But I'll stop at that. It was a great event, and I heard from 3 different families today that they actually loved it and appreciated being able to spend that time with our police and EMS crews. And that's all I have, Mayor.
Great. You can keep rolling that way. Councilman Beck, just talking.
That event was really a good night. I had that on my list of thank yous for putting that together and spending your time down there with so many people. That was fun. When you get through that, there's so many people I would like to thank for Fiesta Days, but just in general, first and foremost, the committee, the Danzies, the Claysons, and the Davies. They've spent so much time, so many hours just on their own to be down there at the events, getting the crews together, so many people in Dell's department with the Parks and Rec. That department does not get any time off. The public safety does not get any time off over Fiesta Days. They give a lot of time back. So thank you so much. I took a ton of pictures. I narrowed it down to one, which will then lead to a video. So this picture, and the mayor can't fire me. He has like no power over that, right? Okay. So this picture is at our movie night in the park, and it was Coco, which was a darling movie. Devotion Dance Academy Studio sponsored that, and so their girls performed, and these are the Little Miss winners. Is that what you call them, Little Miss? Okay. So they got up there and danced, but they had a dad's dance-off. If you can play this video.
Oh, no. That's supposed to have been...
You're going to want to watch them. Yeah, there you go.
On the day I was born, the nurses had to ride.
There's Mayor and Steve dancing right next to the mayor, and then you'll see Sergeant Slaymaker. He has his back to us right now. That guy won up doing the snake over there. I think they're getting tired now. Okay.
We can have a little
Mayor-
discussion afterwards.
You hadn't seen that, so I thought I'd share it in public.
Oh,
Basically, I wanted to reiterate, we have a lot of fun during Fiesta Days. Everyone gets up, dancing, gets involved, are at so many events, so just thank you, thank you. Last week, we had, it was a summer end party for all of the kids that were reading throughout the summer. The library had a Library Rocks party, and so at the park, they had gifts for all of the kids that came. I don't know the numbers of the kids. There were well over 100, possibly 200 kids. And they had a little concert going and a lot of different activities. The kids had a blast, free treats. I was in charge of spray painting kids' hair. They just had fun. So the library really promoted kids stay actively engaged in your reading over the summer, and it worked. And I think that's all for me.
Yeah, that's plenty enough. I'm going to have to start reviewing these before we come. Thank you. I just wanted to say special thanks to the Public Safety Night Out. That was a tremendous success. There was a lot of kids there, and our officers did a great job, and our K-9, and so it was good to have the kids come out and meet with them and get the patrol car siren going and be a part of that. So thank you for all our public safety. Give them a big thanks for that. Also, there was they had a little steak fry for all the volunteers for all those who've coached over this past year. Had a lot of volunteers out there, and we really appreciate all the volunteers in the rec department, because they save us a lot of money and they do a great service to all our youth. And so I just want to thank all those coaches and anybody that was involved with our rec department. I got an email from an individual that I just wanted to share. He said that they were a part of last Friday night softball tournament, girls softball tournament we had down at Spanish Fork. Well, if you guys remember what happened Friday night, it hailed and rained and it came down. So at 8 o'clock, they told all the teams, we're not going to play. Come back tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock. And this individual said as he's walking out, he said, all the people around, he said, those fields will never be ready at 8 o'clock in the morning. When they showed up at 8 o'clock in the morning, they said the fields were perfect. Those rec department guys stayed all night prepping those fields and made sure that tournament went on. So Dale, let those people know how much people appreciate it. They don't understand what they do out there, and so it's kind of fun to get those kind of emails as a mayor, person from out of town, talked about how great our rec department was and what we had there. Okay, let's move on. Spanish Fork 101. Building Beginnings. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. We have on the agenda today for our 101, we've invited some community leaders and some great representatives of an effort that is going on somewhat quietly, and we'd like to elevate a little bit that status and maybe bring a little bit greater voice to what it is they're trying to achieve. So I've invited Brett Griffiths and his organization called Building Beginnings to be here. With him also is Brian Kessinger from the Utah State Department of Workforce Services. So I'm going to let Brian say a few things, and we'll just go from there, however they've orchestrated it. But we appreciate them being here and shining a light on something that is quite incredible.
Thank you. So I'm Brian Kessinger from the Department of Workforce Services. Our office is right over there in Canyon Creek by the new Walmart, or I guess it's the old Walmart now, the Supercenter Walmart. We have 2 Walmarts in our town. How about that? This is a really incredible company that I want to introduce you to. My job as a state employee in economic development is to help businesses be successful and create jobs, and then those individuals that can't get jobs, help them get employment, obtain employment. And a lot of the populations that we work with are individuals that have a criminal background, they're experiencing extreme poverty, some of those are disabled that really have a hard time finding work. I met Brett and Ryan that will come up and talk to you here in a moment over a year ago, and they came to me and said, we want to create a company with hiring only those that are recovering from drugs and alcohols, those that are struggling with addictions and have a recovery program. And we're going to hire just all those that are coming out of this academic or demic, and is a pretty bold statement. And I had my reservations, but I'm here to tell you that this is a homegrown company that is really making strides and a lot of success, and is getting attention with our governor's office and across the state, and even some national attention. And they're right here in Spanish Fork. They started with 4 employees and have grown to over 130. And part of my job is I go into the jail and I talk to individuals and try to help them come up with an employment plan and do some career counseling. And I can call up Brett or Ryan and say I have an individual that needs a job, just needs the second chance. And Brett says, okay, I'll give him a job, without even interviewing the individual. So this is just a crazy, incredible company that I want to give a good reference to. Their website's up here, and their spokesperson is Ryan, and I'll have him come up and tell you a little bit more about their company. So thank you.
Thanks, man.
I like your style, Mike Mendenhall. I'm Ryan Hyman. This is Brett Griffiths. We started this nonprofit. I guess we'll just tell you what. You think we were paying Brian?
He did a good job for you.
I know he's an advocate. He has been since the very beginning. We started the nonprofit. When he explains it, it sounds just like a terrible business model, doesn't it? But it's working. You hear every day in the news about this opioid epidemic. What are we going to do about it? And we started this nonprofit to try to help these guys that don't have any resources get on their feet. I used to work up at I won't say the name, but a well-known little residential treatment center up in Mapleton. And the first question, I was the program director up there, and the first question you ask every single person that calls that wants to get some help is, do you have insurance? If you don't have insurance, do you have, do your folks have 30 grand a month? If they don't, which 9 out of 10 people that want help, they don't have either of those resources. So what do you do? And I used to tell them all the time, I have no idea what to tell you to do. And they just go right back on the street, and they're back to criminal activities to be able to provide for their families and provide for their addiction, more likely. So, we started this thing to help those guys specifically, and what we do and what's working is, recovery. Everyone's scratching their head. How are we supposed to fix this problem? Spanish Fork has a drug problem. I don't know if you are aware of that. I think you knew that. So what do you do to fix it? Well, we lower the cost. We take these guys in with $0, because they have $0. They don't have, a lot of them have already burnt every bridge that they've ever had. And rightfully so, your parents and grandparents, they shouldn't be, they keep throwing money at it. It doesn't work, And so we take these guys, if they really want it, because we were just talking outside, we can't drag anybody unwillingly into recovery and into happiness. We're both in recovery, by the way. I don't know if I mentioned that. You can probably tell he is, but I look good. Anyway, we take these guys with $0. We put them into sober living facilities. And then a big part of the trick is we give them a job. So we employ them so that they're able to start paying. They want to pay their own way. A lot of us, I was tired of taking money from my mom and dad at the end. I wanted to be self-sufficient, but I couldn't do it without a little hand up. So we give them a job. They go together on work crews. We have everything from welding crews to landscaping crews to Brett runs they do the high-end home remodeling. We subcontract with everybody. I saw Vancon. We work with you. Did you know you got some recovered drug addicts out there? Those are ours. And that's actually a good example. Vancon originally, they wouldn't hire felons, until they subcontracted with us. We held the risk and the liability and the workers' comp and all that just in case something happened. And then they came to us after a little while and said, these guys, they're doing good. We want them on our payroll. And so they changed their policy, and now they have those guys on their payroll. And that's, it really, the business model, we try to make a good employee, and then we lose our best employees, and that's what we want, is to get these guys out and they make a little bit more when they get hired on with these companies. Every construction company out there now has some building beginnings guys, Perry Homes, Wasatch Commercial, Vancon, Fibertel, and they do amazing work. And then we gave them quality treatment, which was the piece that was missing. Most intensive outpatient programs are $17,000 for 4 months. So how do you get treatment? They don't have. I don't have. If I wanted to today, I say this all the time, but I couldn't go check into a sober living and go to get treatment. And I've been sober 5 years on Sunday. I don't have those funds to do that. So how does a guy that's homeless, living on the street, if he really wants it, get help? And so we think we've found we know we found a solution. We've helped over 600 people. You'll notice, I don't know if you can pick them out, but all the guys that are smiling, those are all our guys, and they're all success stories. Welding, remodeling, I don't know what he does, but these guys are awesome. We work with Matt, owns a construction company, works with us, HVAC company. Jeremy smiling. They're all smiling because it's basically what we've done is create a support system. They go to work together. We pay for the drivers. We pay for the gas because that's another part of the problem, right? How do you get, if they're lucky enough to get a job with their backgrounds, how do you get to work every day? Plus your probation officer wants to see you at 10 o'clock on a Tuesday. So if you're lucky enough to get a job, how do you tell the new job, I have to be off Tuesday and also Friday I have court. We can't work with that, employers will tell them. So we make all their schedules work, which is insane. They send us their schedules at the beginning of every week. We make it work. We make it work for the contractors. We make it work for our guys, and they're recovering. We were featured on Channel 2 and the Desert News, and it seems to be taking off. We love Spanish Fork, by the way. The other piece of what we're doing is for a group of guys that caused a lot of havoc, you can ask my mom if you don't believe me. We created havoc. You know what we do to your cities. When we're in active addiction, we destroy. We're trying to give back. We're setting up right now a graffiti cleanup crew that we're going to take care of the graffiti in Spanish Fork. This is the city we're starting in. This is our city. We started right down the road in Brett's little living room 15 months ago with the two of us and his wife, and we had a few guys Butts. Where'd Butts go? Right over there. That's his real name. But Spanish Fork is our city. We're going to take care of the graffiti in Spanish Fork, even if Marshall has to do it all weekend. We don't care. He doesn't know that, but and we're going to do it for free. We're going to take care of the graffiti for free. We're not set up to do it just yet. We've had a hard time getting any funding. Everything, all of our companies, they all go right back into the nonprofit to help get these guys on their feet. But anyway, it's working.
So I think what we would like to do next is try to talk with the city and see if there's things we can collaborate on as far as jobs for these guys. Something, within the city that can help provide these guys with employment.
Yeah, we need work.
Yeah. And I think I'd like you to hear some of these guys' stories just to kind of get an understanding of the people you'd be working with. Ashley?
1 minute. Give me your life history in 1 minute.
And then if you have any questions, we'd love to answer them.
I should sit in the corner. I'm Ashley. I'm a drug and alcoholic in recovery. I currently have 15 months clean and sober. It's the longest I've ever had. I lost my parents when I was young, and I turned to drugs and alcohol at a very young age, at 15, and I've been doing it off and on ever since. I've had good careers. I'm an electrician. I seem to get life going good for a minute. Something doesn't pan out, and I fall off. I've had strokes. I've been in the hospital, relapsed, but I've had really good careers. I have 2 kids. I had a promising life, but I threw it all away because my addiction was too powerful. And I didn't know how to fix it. I've been to treatments before, been in rehabs, been in jail. Like I said, I've been in the hospital, and nothing's worked. Nothing's slapped me in the face hard enough to say, you know what, this is your last chance. Well, this last time I got out of treatment, for some reason I felt it was the right place to go. I talked to these guys. Matter of fact, I was in the treatment center that Ryan was the program director at, and he gave me a chance and gave me a job. I don't have a driver's license. Pick me up from my house, give me a ride to work. I get off work, I hang out with those people. I did that for the first little while. I did what was suggested because I knew what I was doing. My whole life wasn't working. Little by little, I started learning more and being more happy and being around these guys day in and day out. You'd think I'd get sick of them or they'd get sick of me, but I'm not. It's given me a life. All the things that I wanted to have in life, I'm that today. And I don't have a whole lot of money, but I have a lot of good people in my life. My kids have their dad back. And I'm happy to be alive today. So there's my life.
Thank you. We appreciate that. I think this is a great program, and we'll look and see if there's something we can do. Seth, he's coming up here. You're in trouble now.
So when Ryan said, look back, everybody that's smiling, I had a smile on my face, and I'm in recovery as well. I'm fully supportive of what they're doing. It's a pretty amazing component to our community. We were at the league meetings last September, and I think it was this year that the KSL radio guy, whose name at the moment is escaping me, J-Mac. Wasn't this year when he spoke about his experience growing up? He was homeless somewhere, I think in California. And for me, that was extremely eye-opening to the lifestyle that he experienced. I say that I'm in recovery, and I put my arms around these guys, and we don't know what issues we have in our city all the time. We don't see this. Chief Adams and his people probably have a better idea of some of this that we may have within the community, but you and I don't get to see that all the time, but it's certainly there. It's not just in Spanish Fork, right? Every community has these issues that they're dealing with, and Salt Lake is seeming to be the more poster child, right? It's a little bit larger population and much bigger issues. But as they deal with that on the state level and focus everything in Salt Lake, we'll certainly see more and more of this move south and homelessness and drug problems. And we can be a part of a pretty great solution, I think, in growing the efforts that they have. So I'm excited I was really excited a couple of weeks ago to get to know Brett and work with him a little bit, trying to solve an issue here local to our community, and just was impressed. Maybe, Brett, could you come up, or Ryan, you were telling me a little bit, some of the success model you have, that you go in groups to work So if we're all three in recovery and I'm the newest guy and I'm just barely off and I'm struggling, I'm probably going to fall off the wagon. But when I go to work with you and we talk about recovery all day long and I say to you, I'm struggling, he picks me up, he lifts me up and he keeps me out. Maybe I can convince Brett, but their experience is that it's hard to get the third guy to go, and then he kind of slaps us and keeps us in line, and it gets me, keeps me going, right? And
Yep.
What's your success rate? And I don't know if you said that. I don't know if you said
Oh, we're running the data again.
Yeah, we
but,
actually have a third party coming in to gather up some data. We've done the data. We have a 68% success rate right now, which
pretty good.
We used to brag about 20% in the residential. 60. I mean, that doesn't happen. 68%. And part of it is it's the whole. You know, when we very first started, the thought was we'll get these guys jobs, and we'd try to get them jobs, and they'd go out by themselves. It didn't work, and the reason was it's a support group. You go, you know, we used to have to go to work by ourselves, and this was all Brett's idea. Brett got out of treatment and decided he was going to work with some guys that he got out of treatment with, and they go to work together. And exactly what you were saying, they support each other. You don't have to go to a job, try to get yourself to a job, and sit there for 8 hours thinking about starting to forget the reasons why you don't want to use. You've got 4 other guys with you on your crew, where you're on your lunch break talking about the benefits of being sober together, keeping each other accountable, and that's why it works.
Yeah. So, anyways, we really appreciate what you're doing. We're grateful to have you. Do any of you other you guys want to get up and tell your story really fast?
I would like one of our employers to maybe
Okay.
share his experience.
Maybe pay attention to this guy's last name. It's kind of a surprising last name.
So my name is Matt Euler. Some of you guys know Oilers, right? I got involved with Brett about 3 months ago. I've been in the construction industry since I got off my mission in 2013, and I've had several different companies from insulation to framing to HVAC. The last 6 years, I've been running a heating and air company based out of Mapleton. We employ a lot of people here in Spanish Fork. And one of the problems with the industry and the marketplace is there is a massive shortage of qualified people coming into the trades. We don't have enough people. We cannot fulfill the demand. And so we started another remodel company at the end of last year, and one of the struggles we were having is we just couldn't get guys to come and do the jobs. We were selling jobs. We couldn't get anybody. I came across Brian, I don't know if he's still in here anymore, and he told me about Brett, and I was immediately intrigued. And so I met with Brett, and since then we've been able to employ a lot of his guys, and they're exceptional. They do a great job. They do really good work. They're excellent with customers. You'd never know. They're very forthcoming and tell you kind of that they're in recovery, but you'd never know it unless they told you. So it's not only helping people with recovery, it's helping the private sector where people need employees. They need these guys to come into the trades, and that's what they're doing. They're teaching them skills. They're getting them ready so that people like myself and others can hire them, and they're ready to go. And so it's extremely valuable, not just from, like I said, the recovery aspect, but also putting more people out there, which is good for the community because you get more people out there. It takes care of the demand. Also, it allows us to offer a service at a better price. When we can't hire people and we're spending a lot of money to try and get people, we have to charge a lot more for our services. And so if we can get more people working for us at an easier pace, then we can offer, a more affordable service. So that's also a part of it. But any help, any help at all is really appreciated. Any jobs, anything that can be done, I know these guys are going to take it, and they're gonna love it, and they're gonna put in their all. So.
Right. Thank you.
So we'll end with this, guys. Thank you. I appreciate you being here, and I think I warned you that one of you might end up. Sorry, it ended up being you, Ramsey. But I think that story is fantastic, and appreciate that. We, as many of these guys probably would say, at some point in their lives they were probably a liability to the community, and now they're becoming an asset, which is a massive swing on a balance sheet, if you will. So we appreciate them. Ryan and Brett, appreciate your efforts, and like I said a moment ago, we just really wanted to shine the light on a resource that seems to be growing and doing great things, and if there are people in the community that are listening and watching that have the ability to do what Matt, Mr. Euler, that name I know for sure, but to become a part of it as well. I think that would be great. And as a city, we've talked through with Brett about some of the challenges that we have and that he's experienced with other businesses. And as we work through some of those, we think there could be ways that we could use their resources and become partners and making sure that everything's safeguarded on the legal ends that they know and have experience with, but we can partner with them. So we appreciate them being here and you giving them that.
Great. Thank you, guys. Thanks for being here. And we won't expect you to sit through the rest of this meeting. That'd be torture.
Thank you, Brett. Thanks, Ryan.
All right, let's move on to the consent items.
Motion to approve the consent items.
Second.
Got a motion by Councilman Gordon, second by Councilman Argal. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Let's okay, we got a bunch of public hearings tonight. First one, ordinance Z08-18, changing the zone designation and amending the official zoning map of Spanish Fork City for Sunset Village zone change. Ooh.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The property that we're talking about here tonight, triangular-shaped piece of property. It's just a little bit west of Shopco, north of 900 North. You might remember that a couple of years ago, we reviewed our general plan for the property. Previously, it had been designated to only allow for retail uses, and at that point in time, a decision was made to modify the general plan to mixed use, to allow, in fact, for at least potentially the very type of project that is before you tonight. So there it is with the proposed layout. You can see that it shares a property line with a couple of businesses and Shopco, also I-15, so potential access is a little bit limited, and that really we would only allow for access off of 900 North. You can see the current zoning, which is shopping center. So there are two components to the proposal that's before the council tonight. First of all, the zone change. To change the zoning from shopping center to R3, and then also to approve a preliminary plat as a master plan development. We've talked about a number of different issues relative to the project, and frankly, I'm going to kind of skip over them because I believe they've been addressed. A photograph of the subject property looking kind of northeast to the backside of Shopco. If the project gets approved, there will be a masonry wall along the east boundary line that the developer of this project would construct, along with some additional landscaping to try to make that transition from the backside of a relatively big box store to a residential development as functional as possible. You're really just trying to focus on screening this. Property's pretty flat. Again, it butts I-15. And as proposed, a total of 23 homes. 22 of them would be in twin home buildings, one single family home, a little bit of off-street parking. Each home would have a two-car garage and a driveway that would accommodate two cars, so they exceed the off-street parking that we require. Elevations of the proposed buildings, one thing that I appreciate that this applicant's doing, that you'll hear us talk, I think, more and more about. I think it's illustrated well with this side elevation here, where you have the wainscot on the front. That's actually being wrapped around on the side. Oftentimes we see that maybe wrapped for a foot or two and stopped. And we're particularly concerned about this level of detail and seeing some of that additional material. So you'd have actually 2 or 3 different materials on the side elevations of buildings like this. We're particularly concerned where those elevations face some kind of public space, either maybe a park or a street, typically a street. And again, I appreciate the way the applicant has proposed to handle that with with this development. In short, based on the findings that we have listed here, the Development Review Committee does recommend that both the proposed zone change and preliminary plat be approved. And of the conditions that we have listed there, the applicant has provided elevations for us. Don't want to spend a lot of time on this, but another concern has to do with buildings that orient to 9th South here. The applicant has given us a few particular home designs for those units so that they will have an orientation to 900 North, so that you won't necessarily be feeling like you're looking at the backside or a side elevation of those buildings. And aside from just having them comply with our construction and development standards, I think they're all set to go.
Is this still a 55 and older development, or is?
Yeah, I'll let the applicant address that. I don't believe they're necessarily targeting the units at a particular demographic, but main floor living, that kind of an arrangement typically serves that purpose.
Okay, it's a public hearing. I'd entertain a motion to go into public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
A motion by Councilman Mendenhall, a second by Councilmember Beck. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone that'd like to come up and address this zone change, please come up. If not, is the applicant here? We'll have her come up. Just come on up. It's nice to see you again.
Yeah, nice to see you.
You want to state your name?
My name is Diane Daniels. My husband and I we got this property from a 1031 tax exchange from a small little bridal shop that I owned in Provo, and we did that in 2013. And we were going to do something with the property. We had various ideas. However, he passed away in 2014, but I decided to continue and do something with the property. There were a lot of ideas of what to do, but this is the one that's we've come up with, and we've had a difficult time because of the triangular shape of the property. It is in an area where it seems like it would be nice to have multiple units or high density because of where it is. It's close to, city and shopping and things like that. Well, do you have questions? It is, we are going to build these units for anybody. We were thinking 55 and older, but you have a lot of units going in Spanish Fork that are for 55 and older. So because of economic reasons, we decided to open it up to anybody, but the units are built for one-story living. I'm going to live in the area. I want to live in this area. I'm from Payson, and when they're built, or when my unit is built, I will be moving over here. There will be an HOA because we want to keep it nice. We want to keep rules for the area, and so we will have an HOA to manage that. And I like your city. My husband taught school here for 31 years in Spanish Fork. He was a shop teacher at the junior high, and he built a few homes, and so we thought this would be something good for our retirement. But I'm carrying on, and I'm excited about the project.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Anybody else? If not, I'd entertain a motion to go out of public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Got a motion by Councilman Gordon, a second by Councilman Mendenhall. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any questions or comments from the council? If none, I would entertain a motion.
I make a motion, we approve ordinance Z08-18, changing the zoning designation and amending the official zoning map of Spanish Fork City for Sunset Village zone change.
Second.
Got a motion by Councilman Mendenhall, a second by Councilman Scobes. This will be a roll call vote. Councilman Argal.
Aye.
Councilman Beck.
Aye.
Councilman Gordon.
Aye.
Councilman Mendenhall.
Aye.
Councilman Scobes.
Aye.
That passes. Good luck. Did you want us to approve the plat on that also? Or was that included in that?
I don't think I mentioned
I didn't
it.
see it.
I think it's appropriate to approve that tonight, yes.
Okay.
I'd add, along with approving the ordinance to change the zoning, that we approve the final plat with the recommendations from DRC and Planning and Zoning Commission. Oh, preliminary plat, sorry.
Preliminary plat.
Second.
Motion by Councilman Mendenhall, second by Councilman Scobes. Councilman Argal.
Aye.
Councilman Beck.
Aye.
Councilman Gordon.
Aye.
Councilman Mendenhall.
Aye.
Councilman Scobes.
Aye.
All right, now it's really passed. So, you're good. All right, ordinance Z0918. Ordinance Z018, changing the zone. Oh, we already did that, didn't we? Or no, this is, yeah, amending the official zoning map of Spanish Fork City for North Star zone change.
Once again, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Griffles, let me use that as the example of what we're kind of following here tonight. There we had a site where somebody wanted to do something with the use that kind of pinched us in terms of some of our requirements, so we adopted a new zoning mechanism that would allow ultimately the council to provide some flexibility on everything from how much landscaping might be required or parking to setbacks. Tonight we're just here to talk about a setback for a proposed business expansion on Main Street near the airport that, as proposed, does not meet the city's minimum requirement. They need a 10-foot reduction from our required setback on the Main Street side of the addition, and that's the question that's before the council tonight. You might even say that does one particular upgrade that they're proposing to make to this proposed addition justify a setback reduction on the Main Street side of the building from 15 feet down to 5 feet? This is the subject property. North Star Printing is the business that would occupy this expansion of their existing building, which is right here on the corner of 2050 North and Main Street, so right on the southeast corner of the airport or right next to it. Zone Industrial 1. Handful of different things, but maybe to focus on this, I think we might have a better looking elevation. But in short, and we've had quite a bit of discussion on this, Main Street eventually is going to be quite a bit bigger than it is today. So relative to what we see today with the location of the curb on Main Street and what will happen as it builds out, Main Street's going to expand and that curb's going to move some 20 feet further out. When I say out, I mean further away from the center of the road to make it bigger. And that, I think, is one of the reasons that we're here to talk tonight about a need to reduce the setback. This is Main Street here. This is 2050 North. This is the proposed addition. You can see a trail here. It's kind of tough to make out, and then just 5 feet of space between the building and the trail. It's not a lot of room. But part of what I think has led the applicants to requesting the reduction that we're talking about is the fact that they did not anticipate the expansion of Main Street being as significant as it will be. And the road's not going to expand all along that corridor overnight. But as we review development proposals like this one, we want to make sure that things are happening such to accommodate that, as it does happen in the future. In fact, a little bit further south of this, you probably are going to have some pretty interesting situations to deal with as Main Street is expanded, given where buildings currently exist, along particularly, I think, the west side of Main Street. Typically, with this being side setback on a corner, an applicant would be required to have 15 feet here. They propose that, like I've said, would be reduced down to 5. And we might be able to get a little bit better look at what they're proposing here. When we first started talking with the applicant about their project, they had proposed to simply make an addition here with a steel type of construction. So it would have been a steel building attached to an existing masonry building. And as we explained to the applicant that we thought that they would have to do something that's going to be more aesthetically pleasing than a steel building, they've proposed to do a concrete building. It'll be a split-face concrete masonry unit with a soldier course of smooth-face masonry units, which will match what the existing building's built of. In fact, it'll be very similar to the type of construction that we see on other buildings in the immediate vicinity. Probably not what anybody would say is, Class A type office warehouse space and that sort of a thing. In my view, though, it certainly is an upgrade from a steel building. And we don't have any regulations that would prevent somebody from building a steel building, except that they'd have to simply meet our setback requirements and that sort of a thing. So it's a long way to say that one potential justification that you might have for approving that reduced setback is the type of construction that they've proposed with this addition. Also, I don't think this shows up probably quite as well as maybe I wish it did right now, but landscaping and how the 5 feet of space that you do have will help dress up that particular side of the building. We've talked with the applicants about doing a couple of different things. First of all, pretty heavy plant schedule. They're in that space, and not just by way of the volume of material that's used. They're also using materials. They're going to provide some kind of vertical screen for that wall. This is the particular wall that we're talking about, and I don't think this image really does it a lot of credit. We have one that might be better that we can pull up. But windows across the top, this is warehouse space. And I think that's one thing that kind of adds to the challenge of making it look beautiful. It'll be full of paper for the printing company, different things like that, things that get transported around with heavy equipment. And it probably makes it difficult to do something other than just masonry or steel on that particular elevation. Windows a little bit higher up on the side of the building. And one other thing, just relative to a discussion that we had in the Planning Commission that might be useful, in terms of how close the building will be to the street. So Main Street in here, you have a 5-foot setback, a 10-foot trail, and then a 12-foot park strip. So the building will still be 27 feet back from the curb, but our property line is at the edge of the trail, and that's how we measure setbacks. So the setback to the property line still would just be 5 feet, but it's not as if the building's going to be 5 feet from the street, for better or for worse. So there will be that distance, so we don't believe we'll have, for example, a visibility issue at this corner or anything like that. And just again, to kind of summarize, it's a matter of whether or not tonight you feel comfortable approving the project with that reduced setback or not. And I believe that's it.
Okay. All right. I'd entertain a motion to go into public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Got a motion by Councilman Scopes, a second by Councilmember Beck. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone that'd like to come up and address the mayor, council on this particular project, come on down. Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion to go out of public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Got a motion by Councilman Gordon, a second by Councilman Mendenhall. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any questions, comments?
So real quick, Dave, when you were talking about the visibility on 2050 and talking about the Spanish Fork Main Street going to widen as it goes there, but they'll still be 27 feet, is that what you're telling me after it widens, or is that now?
No, this is to accommodate the future build-out of Main Street. So
Okay.
the idea is that that curb won't go any closer to the building than 27 feet, even when it's completely built out.
Because this is going to get busier, and that to me, 27 feet. Seems awful short for me to see vehicles coming down there.
Completely built out is 4 lanes down Main Street.
I think actually we might be planning on 7, at least 5, or at least 2 in each direction with a turn lane, if not bigger. So we can check on that for sure.
We're not going to get much bigger on 2050 though, this street. Main Street. yeah,
Main
you're
Street,
going
would-
now.
yeah.
Yeah. This is to the airport, so. The
One of
planning board approved it.
They recommended that it be approved, yes.
Brad Tanner from Triple T Heating on that planning commission that has a building in this area approved it as well. I think that's probably noteworthy. He's a North Main Street business owner.
And I don't mean to speak for Commissioner Tanner, but clearly he had some reservations with this, and I appreciate his perspective of really wanting to make sure that on a corridor like Main Street, we're not doing something that we're going to regret down the road. But over the course of the discussion, he ultimately ended up supporting it. So
You had listed airport issues. What was discussed there?
I think it, at this point, might be kind of a non-issue, and I'm the one that made that note. I think it's a non-issue because of the relocation of the runway, but when so there's been recently another addition made to North Star, which is right here. And it took some time when we went through the approval process on that addition to get the FAA's approval for that to be constructed. They have some purview, relative to the proximity of structures that are built and the runway, and ultimately simply required that the applicant add a beacon, light to that corner of the building so that I assume, it'd be visible to pilots that are coming in to, that approach. It sounds like the applicant's already working with them on this part of the project. They're aware of the process that we need to go through now, if there is any. And to that end, like I said, I don't think it's going to be an issue.
I will tell you, with the airport board, I like improving an area that's unimproved with the money we're going to spend here to make this a nice welcome to the airport. Yeah, the sign and the kind of a table and a place there that will improve that area of the airport, because that's going to be some money.
Yep. Any other comments, questions? If not, I would entertain a motion.
This is a public hearing. I might have missed. I was talking to Junior. Did you guys open that?
We closed the public hearing. Stay with me, Dave.
Step ahead.
Stay with me. You're all right.
Motion to approve ordinance number Z09-18.
Second.
To approve,
Oh, sorry.
okay, changing the zoning designation and amending the official zoning map of Spanish Fork City to North Star zone change.
Second.
Got a motion by Councilman Gordon, a second by Councilmember Beck. This will be a roll call vote. Councilmember Beck?
Aye.
Councilman Gordon?
Aye.
Councilman Mendenhall?
Aye.
Councilman Scobes?
Aye.
Councilman Argal?
Aye.
All right. Next one, ordinance Z10-18, changing the zoning designation and amending the official zoning map of Spanish Fork for Voorhees zone change.
So the subject property here is on 300 North, just a couple of blocks to the east of Main Street. The applicant simply wants to take an existing duplex and turn it into a fourplex. We only allow single-family homes today in the R16 zone, so to do that, they would have to change the zoning, or ultimately you'd have to approve the zoning. to be changed to R3 with the infill overlay. That's the subject property there. I'll talk a little bit more about just kind of the configuration of the property and that sort of thing in a minute. Really want to focus on this. So this is the existing building, and it's my understanding that what currently is a duplex here was built to have really 4 dwelling units in it, 4 homes. So basically it'd be 2 units upstairs, 2 units downstairs, and the Planning Commission has been talking about this quite a while, really focusing on how this building looks, with the idea that in order to add additional apartments to the structure, there's a real need for the applicant to make some modifications to it to have it look better, have it maybe fit in a little bit better with the neighborhood, be something that the neighbors might consider to be more of an asset to the neighborhood than what currently exists. You can also say, I think, just to improve what exists today. And to that end, I really appreciate what the applicant's done. We'll look at some elevations that he's provided that describe changes that he proposes to make to the exterior of this building that I think certainly are an enhancement compared with what we have there today. It's another image of kind of a back part of the subject property, which is really 2 different parcels. I'll talk about that in just a second. We do require that all homes, whether they be apartments or condominiums or whatever today, to have a garage with them. So one of the requirements that comes into play is that the applicant would have to construct a garage for each of the different apartments in the project, and he's proposed to build a separate freestanding garage building right here with 1 space for each of the different apartments in it, which does satisfy our requirement for garage space. This is the proposed elevation or elevations of that proposed garage, and this is his proposal relative to modifying the building. And in all candor, I think that Mr. Voorhees has taken some very direct comments that the Planning Commission has provided, and he's put this together, really following direction that they've given. A lot of concern seemed to exist in discussions that we had about this part of the building here that is most visible from 300 North. Again, I think following what the Planning Commission has suggested that he do, he's proposed to eliminate a carport there and to enclose that space. So this is what you would see here instead of a carport. Proposing to add some different things to the roof line of the building, porch, and so forth. And again, I certainly appreciate what Mr. Voorhees is proposing to do here by way of upgrades, I think, to the building and the site. It's a proposed landscaping plan, and not a lot of detail there. Let me go back to the aerial image to talk about something that came up in our Planning Commission meeting by way of suggestion that one of the neighbors made that I think makes a lot of sense, and I really appreciate them bringing up. We've had a couple of different meetings where there was some public discussion on the proposal, and it seems as though the neighbors are particularly concerned about this part of the subject property up here, which in a very real sense is not being modified with this proposal at all. I don't mean to put words in anybody's mouth again, but it seems like they're concerned about changing the zoning on all of this to R3, and then having somebody at a future date come in and do some additional construction back here, potentially without any oversight from the city and that kind of a thing. And again, that's been a significant concern. So the suggestion was made that perhaps the zoning should just be changed for this property right here. Right now, these are 2 separate parcels that the applicant owns both of. And just to be as quick and direct as I can be, I think that's a great suggestion, that we just focus on this area right here for now. If approved, Mr. Voorhees could move forward, make that conversion of the duplex into a fourplex. It even makes some things easier relative to fencing that I'll touch on in just a minute. That is my recommendation now, which syncs up with the Planning Commission's recommendation, which was to simply change the zoning for the southernmost of the two parcels that Mr. Voorhees owns. If at some future date he would like to do some additional development on that other parcel that he owns, he would have to go through this same process with the zone change. But in fact, it's going to be that way anyway. All that he could do on this back parcel would happen with the infill overlay, same process, same steps and everything like that. So again, I think it makes a lot of sense right now just to focus on this. Maybe the last thing that I'll touch on now. Right now, anytime somebody develops property with some kind of multifamily use next to single-family uses, we require a masonry wall to be constructed on that property line. And we've talked with the Planning Commission a couple of different times now about just how good of an idea that is or is not. And in short, they've directed staff to prepare some amendment language that would potentially allow for something else to be built on that property line besides just a masonry wall. And I'll be the one that'll be writing that, and I've got a couple of ideas as to how maybe that would be worded. What I'm leaning towards now, what I discussed with the Planning Commission, is the idea simply maybe that, you know, it's something that could be reviewed as part of an infill overlay approval, case by case, and potentially something other than a masonry wall could be allowed. Relative to Mr. Voorhees' project right now, our recommendation is that you approve the zone change so that you can move forward with that conversion. And then he simply would be subject to whatever code provisions we have in place when it's time to have that wall or maybe fence installed. So should the city council, let's say maybe in September, approve a text amendment to that effect, he'd have that option of using that potentially with his project. So I think that's about it. Fairly simple, but there's certainly been a lot of discussion on it.
Yeah, it was simple. Okay. Thanks, Ed. We might have some more questions after. All right, I'd entertain a motion to go into public hearing.
So moved.
Got a motion by Councilman Argyle, a second by Councilman Scobes. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone that'd like to come up and talk about this project, come on, state your name, and
I'm Kyle Sheets, adjacent property to the west.
Okay.
We are the ones that, my wife and I are the ones that brought up the two-property situation. And I don't want you to be aware that this is dropping an R3 right in the middle of the R1. This blocks an R1, you're putting it smack dab right in the middle. And the concern from the neighbors were that as an R3, with both of those, the higher density could be constructed, you know, and if it's changed to an R3, let's open the door for, I don't know how, you know, they say as much as 18 units. That won't accommodate 18 units, I don't believe, but that's where the neighbors become concerned. That all of a sudden we're going to have, we start, you know, he came to us with to add two units, and everybody was fine with that. And then we've heard talk of a sixplex, you know, 2 more units, and that got everybody concerned. And so we started doing a little more research. And then we looked at the front of the property and the trash cans. There's 28 feet. Trash cans are supposed to be 4 feet apart, so there's room for 4 units. That could be 4 trash cans, 4 receptacles. So there's really not room for that. So we asked that be addressed. And then also the masonry wall, maybe with, you know, my zoning, only one of them, he can afford a better fence because they're talking vinyl, and I expect vinyl only to last 3 to 5 years. So that was another concern. And I have signatures from the adjacent neighbors on this. on these items. And let's see, what else was there? And the rest of it's been addressed, the 2 units, the 2 parcels. So there was just concern that we've, recently the 18plex have been approved. I believe it's 18 have been approved in northwest of this, here. So we're getting it's getting pretty dense in this little neighborhood. I believe adding this R3 is going to chase out the R1, and maybe that's what the city wants. I don't know.
Great. Thank you. If you want to leave those signatures with Herb, that'd be great. Thank you.
Thanks, Kyle.
Anyone else would like to come and talk about this?
I'll make a motion that we go out of public hearing.
Second.
A motion by Councilmember Beck, second by Councilman Gordon. Go out of public hearing. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any questions or comments on this project?
I have 2. So, Dave, will you go back to the masonry wall? Are you saying we don't want to require it in this case? And why wouldn't we? Because I just know if I was a neighbor to the west, I think I would want a masonry wall. But am I missing something?
No, I think absolutely, in all likelihood, neighbors are going to want the most durable, best looking kind of a separation between them and a project like this that they could get. And indeed, that's how our code reads today, and that's what would be required. I think, frankly, on both the east and west sides of subject property, here probably not along the entire property line, because we don't require that where a multifamily use abuts another multifamily use, only where a multifamily use abuts a single family use.
And it's single on both sides or just the west side?
It's single all along the entire west property line and single, maybe halfway along the east property line. That creates some questions too. What do you do? Do you do one thing to a certain point, something different, along the rest of this project's east property line? I think, not to try to speak for the Planning Commission, but they feel comfortable with the idea that you could create just as appropriate of a boundary between, maybe a project with 4 units and a single family development or lot next door with vinyl as you could using masonry, and feel like in a case like this requiring maybe a $70 or $80 a foot masonry wall is an undue burden for an applicant.
But wouldn't that be an undue burden for every applicant if that's what we're requiring?
That's why they're saying they're trying to amend any overlay to let Dave come up with an idea, some options on masonry wall. I mean, you look at most of the residents, what kind of walls do they have around their homes right now? Vinyl, and so I understand where we're saying here we might be making, an undue burden on someone like this, where all we, require on all the other residents is a vinyl fence, so.
And just from staff's perspective, it's easiest without a doubt to have a uniform standard. It's black and white. Everybody follows it, cut and dry. But I guess maybe this is partly how I look at this. And I think the Reese apartment project was brought up a minute ago. In that case, we've got a 2-story apartment project, pretty dense, 18 units to the acre, new use for the site, and I think different in a lot of ways from this. And for example, in that case, with the Reese apartments, I don't think it is an undue burden at all to put on an applicant to require them to do a masonry wall. That's enough of a change of use, in fact, that the neighbors are going to have to deal with and things like that, that not only do we require the masonry wall, but also landscaping and different things like that. So, maybe one way that I'm looking at it is that, is there some way to scale that standard so that a smaller project and it's going to maybe have less impact on neighbors? Is there something else that's acceptable? I've been a big proponent over the years of the idea that good fences tend to, help neighborly relations be good, and masonry walls, they work really, really well. But just wonder kind of what latitude might make sense there.
Okay, what's currently there?
A chain link fence that's 3 or 4 feet tall.
Okay, second question, parking. They get one garage? Is that normal, just for one parking spot per home?
So each home, in addition to the garage, would have one other space, and then they need to provide 2 other spaces in addition to that for guests. So each unit would have to have 2 point.
Is that included in this?
It is. In a few different ways they could do that pretty easily.
Okay.
I probably have more parking than that.
I just wanted to make sure I'm parking then.
So Kyle brought up trash, and so was that discussed at Planning Commission that I missed? In terms of, I think I agree, I'd rather see cans, individual cans, than a dumpster, and having, a commercial dumpster coming weekly, but what has been discussed in terms of, on every other week when it is recycle week and you've got 8 cans out there for 4 units? Has that been discussed?
Only in the Planning Commission meeting.
Okay.
So I am going to look for help here from somebody relative to how that honestly is the first time that issue's come up.
Yes.
And I think it's a matter of, do you have enough frontage to be able to fit all of the cans out there when they need to be there? I sure want to believe that it can be a non-issue without any trouble. But somebody mentioned specifically, standards that we have for how far the cans have to be apart and different things like that. Any thoughts?
I'm not aware of a standard on that. I've seen in multifamily they have the dumpsters usually, but because of you, I've seen some with garbage cans and they just find a place for them. We don't have a standard right now.
Might be something we look at, address. I think it's a very good point Kyle brings up.
I think so too. I thought I read it somewhere too.
Have we ever had a complaint about this issue?
I think I've had like a sticker on my actual garbage can like years ago that just like, please, leave.
And they put a note there saying you have to be.
Yeah, please separate. So we always separate our garbage cans.
So do you take your tape measure out there and measure them?
Mayor,
Oh, sorry.
we space it adequately.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I think you're right. That's where that came from.
It can't be 4 feet from the vehicle either, and they won't be able to do that.
Yeah, so.
So yeah, I think we need to look
Dave.
at that.
Okay.
Dave, more questions for you. So the triangle lot, just looking into the future, supposing that this passes and it's changed to R3, wouldn't that be a flag lot? We don't develop flag lots.
Right. We haven't allowed those for about 10 years.
As of today.
So I guess that's my second, third order effects is, in allowing that change, does that then kill that triangle of land? Makes it to where nothing can or could happen to it because we don't do flag lots.
I think it's that way today with that triangular shaped piece of land out there. So,
sure. And
Mr. Voorhees and I talked about this earlier today. He would clearly like, I think, to have the zoning change tonight on all of it to R3. And just maybe to talk that through for a second. And let's say that the council tonight, that you do that you change the zoning on all of it to R3. But that as the infill overlay project is concerned, you only approve the conversion of the duplex into a fourplex. So on our books then, we have infill overlay got approved for 4 units on this property. And regardless of how it's zoned then on that triangular shaped piece of property, if Mr. Voorhees wants to do anything different, add any additional dwellings to the property, he would have to apply again, to have a zoning tool used, which is the infill overlay. I would phrase it that it's an amendment of this project to add additional development of whatever kind to that property to the north, and it would go back through this same process. We'd review it as the DRC, make a recommendation, have a public hearing with the Planning Commission, and then a public hearing with the City Council. And incidentally, as is the case with this, you have complete discretion as to whether you say, yes, it's approved, or no, it's denied. And it would be the same situation as we go down that path. And again, that's going to be the same whether it's zoned R3 on the whole thing or R16 on the, if that remains as it is in the triangle, and we only change the southern part to R3 tonight, or I should say you only change.
And so what did the planning zoning approve?
Just the southern lot to R3. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think that helps accomplish what Kyle is, and the signatures from the neighbors is wanting is, we don't want to see 6 if we're talking about 4 today, correct? And I don't think that's the intention of anybody, but at least it helps have that verbiage solidified, correct?
That's entirely my view. And
Okay.
that, even for Mr. Voorhees' sake, that's the upside. I think it makes it a lot easier to recommend that the zone change be approved if we're just talking about, that fourplex tonight, nothing else. And, we let, any future project that he might want to do, and in all candor, and I'll let you speak to maybe future plans that you have, but I think he does have some desire to do something with that at some point in the future.
Well, and I think what he's taken that building that as now and what he's making out of it right now improves that whole neighborhood. So I think he's demonstrating that, hey, I'm taking don't take offense, but
An older building.
Okay, an older building. Yeah, I was going to use a little different language, and make it into a nice. So it's not an eyesore anymore. So I think what I'm seeing here is he's trying to upgrade the neighborhood and trying to be a good neighbor and trying to make that happen. So I like the idea of zoning it the way the planning done it. That way, if he ever wants to come back and do something different, goes through that process, has to bend it, and the neighbors have some reassurance that he's just not going to go out there and build a 10-story skyscraper.
Right.
Perfect.
Dave, I have another question for you, and I didn't see it in the notes from the Planning Commission, but spot zoning doesn't seem to have been brought up or talked about, discussed. That's something that for a number of years we have steered clear from. In fact, a block further south is Dr. Peterson, if I remember right.
Had a lot of discussion on that one, right?
Yes,
About that.
wanted to do and change that, and the infill overlay was a concern, certainly to the neighborhood at that point. But we typically don't spot zone, and this is certainly half a block outside. Now, the merits of the project I like. Improving the building, adding garage space, I think there's some very good things there, but we don't spot zone. Was that discussed at all? Either the DRC or the Planning Commission? What are the thoughts on that aspect?
That I can recall, it hasn't been discussed, but in fact, City Attorney and I just kind of chatted about that for a minute. Almost by definition, using the infill overlay, every project is going to be a spot zone.
Yep. Right.
So I think
We've
it's
done that
been
about 3
contemplated.
times the last little while.
And I would say this, if we were talking about a very distinct use here, like changing that to some retail use or something like that in this context, you'd probably see us recommending that not be approved. But I don't view it that way, that it's a real distinct, change that would allow for a really different use. In fact, you can see from there a photograph, there are a lot of fourplexes in the immediate vicinity of the subject property and different things like that. It just happens to be that our only zoning mechanism to let this happen is a different zone, so.
Appreciate it.
Any other questions?
If approved, the new construction would be putting up some interior walls to make a duplex into a fourplex, plus the new garages to the north, right? That's,
Sure, come on.
You'd have to come up,
We can
sorry.
invite you up here. Just state your name for the record.
My name is Brent Voorhees. The property has always, it was designed to be a fourplex. It already has a lot of things in there, like the the plenums for the heating on both sides. It has an extra flue. It has obviously 2 entrances downstairs that have been there since it was built. I'm not sure why it wasn't built into a fourplex, but this makes sense to make it into a fourplex, and I think, and be able to make use of it. That's my plan. I'm a little concerned about, I don't want the triangle part to become a flag lot, so I can't do anything. I don't want to do that. If there's some way I can have some future use, I would appreciate that.
And you can come back, and like you said, you can amend this. Is that correct?
He can apply, and it's up to you ultimately as to whether or
Right,
not.
so you'd go through the same process.
Okay, just doing
is what you're doing now. Yeah, it's not like you can never do anything with it now. You could
Okay.
always come back and
Okay, good.
go through the same
Yeah.
process and bring it before us and the planning board, and then,
Okay, great.
yeah.
Have any other neighbors shown interest in that? It's just a curious question
Well,
I have.
because you can see it's an angle that's kind of odd. Probably no other place in the city has anything like that. But there was a little irrigation ditch that ran from one corner to the other, and that's why the property line is like
That
that.
it made it that way.
And yes, they've talked about the people that on 4th North there that had where there was a little
The old store?
little store there.
Hawkins
It's only
Market.
20. It was like 20 feet from there. I think it's 20 feet from there to the road. And they actually would like to have a little piece of that. But I wanted to make sure that I didn't cause problems by not having enough property area for density. So it's funny because when I went around and asked people if they were opposed to doing what I want to do, they said, well, we thought, first of all, they said, we thought it was already a fourplex. And then the next thing they said, well, you own that property? I'd like to have a piece of that property. So.
There you go.
Okay.
Anyway,
Right,
thank you.
Thank you. All right. If there's no other discussion, I'd entertain a motion.
Motion to approve ordinance Z10-18, changing zoning designation and amending the fish and zoning map of Spanish Fork for the Voorhees zone change. Just the,
I think it's all included in the.
okay.
So, right, that's included the way the planning commission wants it.
So following the planning
Yeah.
commission's recommendation.
Right.
Following the planning commission's recommendations.
A motion by Councilman Argal.
Second.
Second by Councilman Mendenhall. This will be a roll call vote. Councilman Gordon.
Aye.
Councilman Mendenhall.
Aye.
Councilman Scobes.
Aye.
Councilman Argal.
Aye.
Councilmember Beck.
Aye.
Okay. Resolution 18-12 adopting the final tax rate for the 2018 tax year.
Everybody wants to exit, they can.
Boy. Oh, come on. Aren't you throwing candy?
If they were Star or Life, I'd have candy for them. I guess the first question is anybody from the press here?
They took you serious.
I know, you did well.
Thanks, Ken.
Proud of you, Ken.
Okay. I'll go quick.
Thank you.
I have two things to talk about today. One is the city budget, and the other is a truth and taxation hearing. We'll do the taxation hearing first. And so the timeline that we talk about will roll back till May 1st,
We presented the city budget on May 1st. We talked about doing a truth and taxation hearing if we were going to hold the rate in our property tax. And as we went on, we had a public hearing on the budget on June 5th. And at that point, we started the planning that we were going to hold the rate and we would not adopt our budget, the city budget, in June. On June, that we would wait until, on June 15th, we would wait until a time in August. Well, that time in August is here. It's August 7th. We've advertised this with the county in the newspapers, put it on our website. So we've met all the obligations as far as having this hearing tonight. So what I want to talk about is the notice that was in the paper for the people home, and so what I wanted to show you is the average value of a resident in a home or a residential home, single-family dwelling, is $265,000 for Spanish Fork. Each city would be a little bit different. So if you see another city with their notice, their average would be different. But for ours, that's what our city is. And us maintaining the rate would have this home at this value, the property tax would raise from $129 to $139, so it'd be $10. And the notice goes on to say that that's a 7.75% increase. Okay? I want to talk a bit more details about what this is. This is a snapshot of a pie chart of what our city tax portion is of that house would be paying. So, of course, the other taxing entities that would be taxing that house would be the Neville School District, Utah County, the Central Utah Water Conservancy, and then some other fees and collecting. So our portion of that tax that comes to the city is only 8% of a resident's property tax that they pay. So it is a small piece of the pie, but it's beneficial to our residents here that provide city services. This paper screen shows that value, what would that value pay, or where does my property tax go? Well, we get a discount of 45% off of residential, your first primary place that you live in. So minus that, this would be the taxable amount of that fair market value. And then there's the rates that are established by all the other taxing entities that are there. So you can see our Spanish Fork rate. If we did not hold the rate, our rate would fall from the 0.000955, it would drop to this 886. And in the past I've explained that the city only gets as much dollars we collected in the prior year plus growth. But that prior year dollars is all we have to work with. The denominator in that rate is the value of the house, or the value of all the houses throughout the whole city. So as the values all increase, they reappraise and people's houses increase in value, that raises the denominator of the equation, but doesn't bring us any more dollars because they lower the rate in order to collect the same dollars. What they're proposing this year for our property tax is to hold the rate. It would have fallen to 886, but to hold it to last year's rate, and which would be 955. Okay, so on this home, the 129 would increase, and I'm going to, this kind of jumps forward a little bit, but here's what the other cities in our Utah County, what their tax rates are. I didn't list some of the smaller towns, but this is the most of the cities that are there. And if we propose to maintain our rate at the 955, the property tax for that house then would be $39, or $139 instead of $129. And so we would have been the seller of the smallest, the lowest property tax rate for all the major cities that we have. Eagle Mountain let their rate fall, and ours would maintain it, would come up. So we're not the bottom anymore, but we're pretty close to the bottom. What this also shows is that some of the other cities have had hold the rate hearings also. If they haven't already, they're going to have it in the next week. An example of one of those is Payson. Payson's would have dropped to high 11s, but they not only held their rate, they raised their rate a little bit higher than that. And this value right here is the value of all of the real estate, residential, commercial stuff inside the city it's $2 billion as far as the value. And so another interesting is this part here about the Spanish Fork versus Payson. The residents in Payson, you can see what their taxes are compared to Spanish Fork. Their taxes for their sliver of city tax is $77, while Springville had voted debt that they did theirs, and they're up here at 19, and that's the difference in the property tax just for the city portions. Of course, Springville and Spanish Fork and Payson all pay the same NEBO rate, would be the very same. So the differences would be just the city portions. So what this hearing is going to be is to allow the citizens to comment on holding the rate and the impact of that, and the impact of what that rate would be is having our last year's rate with our this year's values, we will collect this much money. And if we let the rate fall at that value, this is what we would have collected. So it is an increase of revenue to the city of about $150,000 by maintaining that rate. And maintaining that rate still puts us at the bottom of the other peers of other cities that are there. What is that impact of that increase right there? That increase works out to be about $10.09 annually, or about 84 cents per month on a person that lives in the household that's $265,000. Now, of course, if your house is worth more than that, then your dollars would be higher than that. If it's less than that, your impact would be less than that. Okay? This graph I threw it in, is to show you what the impact to a whole city is as far as what the property tax rate is. So what this is taking our values, and if we use our values against using another city's rate, what would be the revenue stream that would come to our city if we had another city's property tax rate? So if you can see, say at Payson, if we had Payson's rate, we'd be collecting $1,300,000 more. If we had Springville's rate, we'd be collecting $2.2 million more in our city compared to what we are right now.
Per year.
Per year. Okay? So it kind of blows that number up a little bit bigger.
Woodland Hills took over Mapleton.
Yeah, I had to go back.
It's always Mapleton has always been right at the top.
I think they were always tall, but they're a town, and so I've never really included them. But I had to go back twice to check. And I was, are you sure it's 43? And that's what the state website says. Okay.
Interesting.
So back to this summary is the impact of holding the rate is it generates $150,000 in revenue to the city at the impact of that average home of $10 a month or $10 a year, or about 84 cents a month is what the impact of adopting this ordinance today. Now, to shift the discussion, why are we holding this truth of taxation hearing? And that's a summary of what I just got done telling you. So we have talked to the council in our retreat, our training sessions in the winter months. We talked about the need for a new fire station up on the east side of town. And the council's intent at this time is to use this hold the rate in order to start to plan and preparing for having additional service, or expanding our fire services to have 2 fire stations in town to increase the response time that can provide a greater level of service that our citizens can have as far as fire protection. So the property that has been purchased is up on the east side of town. This is the new Walmart right here, Highway 6 and Canyon Road. And so the city's purchased these 2 homes here and have taken those homes down and are in the process of going forward with that plan for that second fire station. And the plan is for that $150,000 is to start to put towards being able to operate that. So it's not just to build it, which can be used also, some of it used to be built. So this slide was given in our council training, showing that the estimate, we don't know for sure what the cost is about $6.5 million to build this fire station and to put some equipment inside and then you still have to fund it and operate it to pay to have the firemen there and to respond. So these are some options that we have talked about. There's different options, but as far as using impact fee, selling some of the property that we have near that area, receiving a refund back, reimbursement back for the top of Center Street homes. We've purchased homes up there. That's a grant that's going to reimburse us. We have those funds coming back into the city. And using that would still require maybe some additional funding from outside source. Or if we can keep using this method of funding for the next couple of years, we could garner up probably enough money through this that we could hold the rate for the next couple of years and fund the capital of it in a couple of years and then have that revenue stream to actually use it to operate it after that point. So that for the next 3 years, that 150 and then another 150 on top of that other 150, so it'll be 150 and 300,000 and then 450. So you get if the property values keep going up that way, it would be a compounding effect over the next 3 years. And so by the end of 3 years, we could have about $1 million in savings that we'd have saved up for the help in the purchase of that. Then going forward after that $1 million or so could be used, maybe not all of it, to operate it as it rolls forward after that point. So this is the first step in that, is taking the 150 to that to roll it towards for the next 3 years as we work with the architects to find out what the real price is going to be as we bid that out and get finalize on a number of it. Around $6 million is a ballpark estimate of what that would be. Okay, so this is I think the final slide as far as the impact. It's $10 a year on an average home, and it would garner $150,000.
Great, thanks, Kent. I'd entertain a motion to go into public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Got a motion by Councilman Gordon, or Councilman Mendenhall, and Councilmember Beck. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone that'd like to come and address the mayor and the council concerning this, sure, welcome to come up. Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion to go out of public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Got a motion by Councilman Gordon, second by Councilman Mendenhall. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any comments or questions? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion.
I'll make a resolution to pass number 18-12, adopting the final tax rate for the 2018 tax year.
Got a motion by Councilman Beck and a second by Councilman Scobes. This is a roll call vote. Councilman Mendenhall.
Aye.
Councilman Scobes.
Aye.
Councilman Argyle.
Aye.
Councilmember Beck.
Aye.
Councilman Gordon.
Aye.
Okay. Kent, that passes. I guess you're up again, Kent.
Yep. Well, this will go.
Fiscal year 2019 budget.
Here we go. So now with that, we get to adopt the budget that we didn't have adopted yet. We adopted a tentative one in May 1st. We've been living on that one since July 1st, and now you get to adopt the one we're going to live by until the next revision, or for the rest of the year. So I forget that this PowerPoint might have a different tabbing than the one on my desk. So I'm going to buzz through some of this. This is the same, part of this is the same presentation that we gave you in May. There goes the press.
You're okay now. You don't have to worry.
This budget is now $99 million. I'm getting close. No, you guys are getting close. It did increase from the tentative because some of the projects rolled over that didn't get done. For example, the golf course has some more to finish up the landscaping on up there. The ballpark has some adjustments on it. And so anyway, that's where it's at. So the budget's made up of three big pieces of the pie. The enterprise funds are the utilities. The general fund is mostly funded by taxes, and the miscellaneous funds are capital projects that are smaller and for capital projects. Here's the list of our general fund expenses. There's a lot of services in there. If the scouts were here, we'd talk more about it, but since they're not, we'll give you the Reader's Digest version of this. And the mayor's smile. Okay, this is a sample of the police budget. If you see down here, this last column is our 2019 budget. So it's $5.6 million for the police. This is a sample of the parks budget. Same type of stuff, but you can see there's a big expenditure here. What's been spent so far, what was budgeted last year, and so some of these expenses need to roll forward so we can make sure we have enough money in the budget to pay the expenses in the right year that they incur. Okay, enterprise funds, they're up to 60 million right here, and you'll notice that there's some big changes from one budget year to the other. Right there in the sewer collections, budgeting the lift station and other improvements with the sewer system. Those are some major changes of the difference between the two. And also on water, you can see some big purchases in water right there. Okay, those are the miscellaneous funds. Most of them are in the capital projects right here. And the debt service. This one right here is our RDA. We have 3 or 4 active RDA areas. Okay. This is a snapshot of the general fund showing the expenses it takes. I just picked out some of the bigger funds here that have somewhat of a revenue stream, but this is just depicting to show you that there's not enough general fund revenue to support all the services in the general fund. And so this is an example of, for example, police. They only generate $400,000 in revenue, and they have a $5.5 million budget. And even at the library, so you see the library, $700,000, they only collect $64,000. So they're in the hole. So we use taxes to supplement those that they can't sustain themselves. Sales tax and property tax, and we also use, besides these and their own revenue streams that's in here, we advertise by state law a transfer or a gift from the enterprise funds to the general fund. We also bill a lot of our general fund services, our attorney's fees, engineering fees, our administration fees. We bill those out in indirect services. So we do have a revenue stream coming from the enterprise funds and utility funds to help out in the general fund to cover that shortage that we have, an $8 million shortage that we have in the general fund.
Can't explain why public safety can't crack the nut. Some people have asked me before, why don't you just charge more when there's a fire if we need to do stuff?
We don't behave that way as humans.
You don't take out the square when you go save somebody's life and say, now you owe me
no
a couple $1,000.
Well, we let the insurance deals with some of those.
Sure.
But, that's public safety, and that's why a community the way it is. The community pays for needs, a lot of the needs, that whether you use it or you don't use it, it's there for those that need it.
Those cops have to be on duty, whether they're arresting somebody, whether they're saving a life.
And you have to have the fire truck, just in case there is a fire, or an ambulance. So this one shows our revenue stream, some of our bigger revenue streams, and you can see that our sales tax, we are in a healthy economy. We do have wonderful stores, I call them vending machines, that collects revenue for the city, and so we can provide services. And we do have, our property tax is growing, but it's a steady, not to the same magnitude that our sales tax is. This growth out in the Walmart, Costco area, it's a substantial benefit to the city. And if you roll back my brain back 10 years, when we started talking about North Park and let's take out North Park, and we need, it was a kind of consensus that we needed have a broader base than just property tax, and commercial was the way that it was going to help our community provide services into the future. And we were fortunate to have a council that saw that vision, and we have a healthy commercial area, which is a benefit. So nice work. Buzz through some of the rates. These are some of the rates that have changed for this budget year: electric and sewer and storm. ESU is the equivalent service unit. So there is a slight increase in some of those utilities as we go forward, maintaining systems that's required in each one of those. So if you have any questions of those, I'm sure Chris can talk to those. Personnel changes for this next year. Those are some of the full-time positions in different areas. It's been a while that the city added certain areas, so as the city grows, there's more parks, there's more places to take care of. It just requires more people to maintain the level of service that the city provides. Here's some big projects that are in there as far as construction. The sports park is probably the big one right now. We're just finishing up about, I don't know, are we halfway through, Dale? Or?
We're more than halfway.
More than halfway. So anticipate some great things down there. The cemetery is getting a new road. The beautiful buildings at the fairgrounds, if people haven't seen those, the facades and structure there, those are great. Anyway, some great things as far as planning. Again, down in the capital projects, we've created a new fund called the Fire Station number 62. It's not the 62nd station in town, but our town's digit is 6, and it's number 2. So it's 62. I think that's right. Is that right, Chief?
Wow.
Oh.
That was pretty,
Brandon?
that didn't go over your head, did it?
Yeah, I got it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. So anyways, everybody wonders, what's 62? Where does that come from? But our town is 6J, so we are 6. And a different size of town was numbered years back. The population might have changed, but when they numbered a city, that's the way it was back then. And number 2 is the second fire station. I already talked about the transfer. This is the transfer of a dividend or a gift from the utilities. It was 3.5% as far as the gross revenues, and that helps the general fund. We're required by state law to notice all of the utility rate payers that we do have this transfer. We notice them before we do it, and now within 30 days or 60 days after today, I have to do another notice to them to tell them what we really did. So that's the way they wrote the state law, so we have to just jump through that hoop. Here's a map of the transfers. Sometimes money gets moved from Fund A to Fund B. This is another requirement the state auditor requires us to show as far as that transfer of money, the flow of money from enterprise funds to general fund to capital projects funds. So it just maps out how the flow of funds go through all the different funds of the city. Sorry about the decimal lineup. That's one of my pet peeves, so it's really cringing me here. This is the new impact fees. Some of the developers in the room might notice some of the changes on these, and they become effective tomorrow? 1st of August, okay, which is already passed barely. So those are, for our city, those are the impact fees. Every city has a different calculation, a different study, different infrastructure, so from city to city, impact fees will change. This is a list of the donation fee waivers. When the city waives a fee for someone to use the fairgrounds or the library or something, or to donate cash in one way or another. One that we added here was the Tabitha's Way to use the fairgrounds as their backpack program. So we got that in there. It's going to be perpetual until you tell us to take it off of that. Perfect. And in closing, I think that's it. So I do have a copy of the budget for you. One tree down.
It's a good thing we're a tree city.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, I'd entertain a motion to go into public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Got a motion by Councilman Mendenhall, a second by Councilman Gordon. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
If there's anyone that'd like to come and talk about this exciting budget. Darn. All right, I'd entertain a motion to go out of public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Got a motion by Councilman Gordon, a second by Councilman Argal. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any questions, comments? If there isn't any, I would entertain a motion.
Mayor, I know it's kind of preaching to the choir, but maybe there's people still bored enough that nothing's on TV that they're watching. There's some public here, but again, the public should know that this budget's been in a working document for a long time. Kent's department, every department head, just commend you guys for all the work you do, keeping us informed and in the loop as we study it and talk to people and talk to each other to try to figure out how to take care of the financial health of the city. And I think, again, the way that this city is successful is because it has a historical track record of being successful financially, very healthy financially. I know there's some deans here and a builder that builds here, but builds in probably every one of those cities that we listed there. I think people know that live here and do business here that we're a financially healthy city, a transparent city, and going through this process is a very transparent process. So I appreciate that from a city councilman's perspective of only doing this a few years now and learning through that, but I know the public does as well, because when they talk to me, if they ever talk to me about this, they know what I know because we're having these slides about it and what the purposes are. And so I appreciate that process because it makes to passing a $99 million budget somewhat easy.
And the nice thing about it, everybody can go online and see this budget. It's all online. There's nothing hidden or there. It's everything that we've got in this little document right here is online. So.
Well, and talk to your neighbors, or your people that live from different places or currently live in different places. Again, I'm preaching to the choir a little bit, but when you have a project like another fire station, that can be a pretty big political issue that turns political because you have to raise some property taxes. You have to do something. You have to do some big swings that maybe take into account different emotions. And I know everyone hates taxes and death, but we're all going to die and have to pay taxes. But in the end, it's sorry, I'm rambling there. But
sure.
in the end, it's because of the transparency of it and the good financial stewardship of decades of Kent and also all the department heads and the council and mayors that have been here before that make a process like this possible to not do too much damage to the citizens, but still provide that excellent quality of life and service. That's why people want to come here, want to do business here. So good work.
Go ahead and make a motion.
All right. That was my long way of making a motion of approving the fiscal year 2019 budget of Spanish Fork City.
Second.
Got a motion by Councilman Mendenhall, a second by Councilmember Beck. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That's been approved. All right, ordinance 1518, adjusting the common boundary with Springville City.
Thank you, Mayor. So the meeting before last, we brought this to the council pursuant to state law for you to look at and to indicate whether you're interested or not. You indicated that you were interested in making a boundary adjustment with Springville. And so we followed the state law. We've noticed this for 3 weeks in the paper. And now tonight is the opportunity for our residents to comment on it. So we look up this area right there. This property, this parcel is split, as you can see by that line. And this part of it is in Springville City. This part of it is in Spanish Fork City. The developer's come along and has an option to purchase this, combine it with this piece, and put a project together, and approach Springville about releasing that property, let it come to Spanish Fork. They've agreed to do that. They too are having a public hearing tonight. And if we pass it and they pass it, then this little triangular piece, which is currently in Springville City, will move to Spanish Fork City. So again, we had to notice it for 3 weeks. So meeting before last, But we come before you, you adopted a resolution that authorizes us to proceed and notice it for a public hearing. And so tonight is the opportunity for our residents to comment about that.
Right. I'd entertain a motion to go into public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
A motion by Council Member Beck, second by Councilman Scope. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
We're in public hearing. Anyone would like to come talk about this issue? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion to go out of public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
A motion by Councilman Argal, a second by Councilman Gordon. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any questions, comments? If not, I'd entertain a motion.
Motion to approve ordinance 15-18, adjusting the common boundary with Springville, Utah.
Second.
Got a motion by Councilman Argal, a second by Councilman Gordon. Any comments? If not, this will be a roll call vote. Councilman Scobes.
Aye.
Councilman Argal.
Aye.
Councilmember Beck.
Aye.
Councilman Gordon.
Aye.
Councilman Mendenhall.
Aye.
That approved. Ordinance 1618, adjusting common boundary with Salem City.
So this is the same process. This took place with the resolution the same night. This is having the opposite effect on the south border with Salem. So if we come down right to here, we've got this little triangular piece right here. Is owned by the Christiansons. They have a rental piece of property on there that has got water problems. Their well's gone bad. Salem's water line is right there, but they can't hook up as long as it's in Spanish Fort. They're also already on Salem Sewer because of the earlier agreement we had for the project a little bit to the east and north of there. So we were proposing to proceed there and do a boundary adjustment with Salem that would take this and put it into Salem, which somewhat makes sense since this is 8,000 south, the main road that goes out to the freeway, and give Salem the south side of that road.
Okay, I'd entertain a motion to go into public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
A motion by Councilman Gordon, a second by Councilman Mendenhall. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone here to want to talk about that? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion to go out of public hearing.
So moved.
Got a motion by Councilman Gordon.
Second.
Second by Councilman Mendenhall. Any comments? If not, I'd entertain a motion.
I move we approve ordinance 16-18, adjusting common boundary with Salem City.
Second.
Got a motion by Councilman Scopes, a second by Councilman Mendenhall. This is a roll call vote. Councilman Argal.
Aye.
Councilmember Beck.
Aye.
Councilman Gordon.
Aye.
Councilman Mendenhall.
Aye.
Councilman Scopes.
Aye.
So we taketh and we giveth away. That's how it works on the property. Okay, ordinance 1718, amending Title 15 concerning water transfer, water conveyance facilities, designating the city engineer to sign notices relating to development obligations and other similar changes.
So we're making different requests of you here tonight. We've had some miscommunication within our departments, and this got notice for public hearing with the Planning Commission, got placed on their agenda, but they didn't act on it. Because of that, it can come before you and be acted on. However, the preferable way is for the Planning Commission to act on these things. However, Section 3 on water transfer is critical to engineering. It relates to our impact fees, which is, as you heard a minute ago, went into effect a week ago as it relates to water. So we're asking you to adopt Roman numeral 3, dealing with the water transfer, and to defer the rest of it until Planning Commission can actually act on it. That's unique. We prefer to always have Planning Commission look at it, but by the law that was on their agenda, you are allowed to proceed, but we'd ask that you not proceed with all of it, just with Section 3. So the water transfer is a pretty small change. As you all know, we require a developer when they do a project to bring water to the city, so when somebody turns the tap on or turns their sprinklers on, you know, water comes out the tap or waters the lawn. The change here is tying to our impact fees. Our water requirement is we want to identify that the amount of water they bring needs to be based on an 80% precipitation year. So in a drought year, if it's low, and you know, we have pretty regular
80% water years. We want to make sure we still have adequate water, that when somebody turns the tap, water comes out. So that's the change, is the last sentence there, indicating that it's based on 80% precipitation year. A little later tonight, Chris will present to you a resolution that will show how we've calculated the amount of acre feet with each of the different water companies that we deal with, and you'll see then why that's important. But that's the change, and again, we just ask you to act on that one section tonight. Questions about that or the process? See, that's kind of unique, but we did have that miscommunication.
Perfect. Entertain a motion to go into public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
A motion by Councilman Gordon, a second by Councilman Scopes. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone would like to come and talk about this? Besides Junior. I'd entertain a motion to go out of public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
A motion by Councilman Mendenhall, second by Councilman Gordon. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any questions, comments on this? If not, I'd entertain a motion, and Junior might have to help you.
I'll make a motion to approve ordinance number 17-18, amending Title 15 concerning water transfer, water conveyance.
Just water transfer.
Section 3.
Section 3. It's not there, but just say it.
Only Section 3.
Only Section 3.
Perfect.
Second.
Got a motion by Councilmember Beck, a second by Councilman Gordon. This is a roll call vote. Councilmember Beck?
Aye.
Councilman Gordon?
Aye.
Councilman Mendenhall?
Aye.
Councilman Scobes?
Aye.
Councilman Argyle?
Aye.
Well, I think we're done with the public hearings. Thank you. Okay, new business. Hanning's Acre preliminary plat.
Spent a lot of time in the last couple of years talking about the annexation that included the subject property here. That was the Warner annexation. The proposal that's before the council tonight is nearly identical to what we reviewed as part of the annexation process. And in fact, the applicants actually reduced the number of units that they proposed to have included in the project. But because of the level of detail that we went through in reviewing a proposal for the development of this property at the time of annexation, actually zoning was assigned then, which is a little bit out of character for us as a city. A lot of times we'll wait until we have a preliminary plat to do that. But because the council has signed R16 zoning tonight, all that we have before you is a proposed preliminary plat to have the development approved as a master plan development. As proposed, it'll have 127 different homes in it. That includes 21 buildings with 4 homes in each of them and 43 single-family detached homes. This is the subject property here, so just north of South Lane, a little bit south of the fairgrounds, a little bit east of Main Street. Again, currently zoned R16. Been discussing a number of different issues with the applicant. I'll touch on a few of these in a minute. And frankly, I think the majority of them, to one degree or another, have been resolved. These are elevations of at least one of the, I think we actually have 2, but of some of the home plans that are proposed to be built as the single-family homes there. I'll go ahead and mention this now, just to get it out of the way. I spoke with Dean Ingram from Arrive Homes earlier today about the same issue that I brought up earlier tonight. I'm going to sound like a broken record, I think, over the course of the next several months, relative to, hey, if, for example, this side of this home faced one of the streets in the project, we're going to expect them to do some things to dress that up. You know, whether it be maybe changing a material on some part of it, you know, via a pop-out or some kind of change in the foundation for that elevation, carrying a wainscot around or whatever. These kind of blank expanses. And I'll say this, this doesn't come close, in my opinion, to being the worst thing that we would have seen in town if it got built just like that. But still, we're working with all of the builders in the community to try to make sure that certain things get avoided. Plans for another home. And I'll maybe let Mr. Ingram describe those in more detail if he'd like. The floor plan here for the 4 home structures. I don't know if any of you have been over in Springville, just north of 400 North in Springville, north?
South.
North south, sorry. Near some medical office buildings and things like that. Is not identically to this, but something similar to this are some homes that have been built there. And in fact, it's something that our Planning Commission looked at back in 2015 when we were working on the R4 zone and creating that. And they really, really gravitated towards it, really liked this as a concept and just how it looks from the street to where it doesn't look like a multifamily building necessarily. A lot of curb appeal. So for example, if you saw this from the street, you might think it's just a big home. And typically there's a shared driveway to where 4 driveways converge and access homes on each side of them. And again, that is the concept that was reviewed when we talked about the annexation and when that was approved. So I'm not saying this or haven't yet, but I really appreciate the level of design detail and things like that that we're seeing here. And again, I think that's consistent with what we talked about at the time of annexation. We have a landscape plan that frankly is a cut above what we've seen with other projects here in Spanish Fork. I think the designer's really trying to put together a project that's going to retain some of the rural flavor that part of the community has today. So for example, we would be avoiding things like masonry walls in favor of open fencing and different things like that so that it has less of maybe an urban feel to it. That's something that was discussed in just a few minutes of a neighborhood meeting that I attended a month or two ago. There are a couple of adjustments that still need to be made, I think, to the landscaping plan, to get some trees along the streets and different things like that. I've discussed that with the applicant. I'm very confident that we can just address that with the final plat submittal. And with that all being said, I think we're really just down to one issue that may become a non-issue. It's been discussed a lot, and hopefully some things happen so that we can get an access built from the subject property over to Main Street here in the next year or two. We've consistently discussed with the applicant the need to have 2 accesses to the project before they do their 51st home in the development. So that's a threshold that exists right now in our construction standards. You can only do up to 50 units with 1 access. And frankly, I always, up until recently, envisioned that second access could only be a connection. I think we might ultimately call this Volunteer Drive, but a road that would come from the Volunteer Drive and Main Street intersection over to the subject property and south. Right now, that seems like a very daunting task. Got not just 2, but 3 different property owners that would have to work with the applicant for that to be able to happen. And I know at least one of them today has no interest in seeing a road built on their property. So we have discussed recently the idea that perhaps with improvements to Bradford Lane, that could suffice as a means of second access maybe for some period of time. And I think the position that we've kind of taken as staff today is that we're happy to look at that in more detail, maybe with a more detailed traffic study and more detailed recommendations on improvements that could be made to other roads that they could suffice as a second access. But at the same time, we sure hope that the applicants will do everything that they can to try to make that Main Street connection happen. From my perspective, that's really the only really significant issue that exists at this point. You know, like I said, we've to some degree been through a lot of these issues already, and both the Development Review Committee and Planning Commission have recommended that the project be approved as a master plan development. I think the applicants have a presentation that they want to go through tonight, and for whatever it's worth, Scott, if you want to show that. So this is a slightly modified version of their plan here that, as I mentioned a minute ago, well, that's the applicant's presentation, maybe we just look at that. But like I said, the applicants have actually reduced the number of units that they want to have included. So they've gone from 130 down to 127. Not a big drop, but still a drop nonetheless.
Hey, don't fight over it. Anybody can come up and do the presentation. It's all. State your name for the record.
Bert Bradford. There was a view of the property. This was done in response to some of the Planning Commission concerns. This is where this presentation came from. This is the landscape plan that we've proposed. We've got some pavilions. There's a lot of open space here and here. These are trails that will go through the open space. Right now, a couple of pavilions in the open space for picnics, barbecues, that kind of thing. We're still tossing around the idea of a clubhouse. The reservation with the clubhouse is that it puts a burden on the HOA to maintain and pay for that. So that's something that we're still, I guess, still looking at. But for sure, pavilions and some of those amenities and the trails, and I think it'll have a really open feel to it as we build through it. This is the phasing plan. This is first phase. Second phase takes us right to 50 units. The first phase, there's a lot of off-site utilities that will have to be put in to get the first phase under construction. The last phases will be, right now, the plan is the last phases will be to improve Bradford Lane, but maybe that needs to change in the future. These are some of the typical elevations, which Dave already showed you those. We're going to partner with Arrive Homes. This is fencing that we propose on this boundary between McKell's property and ours, knowing that they have a higher density zoning. So we feel that we need a privacy fence there, and well, I think it's city ordinance also that they want a 6-foot privacy fence along that boundary. This is a composite fence that kind of looks like a stone fence. There's several of them in the city now. And then, actually, I think, Dave, am I wrong in saying that that fence also goes up and down Volunteer Drive? Or is that the wrought iron?
That's the idea, is that, again, we don't want to create, the kind of corridor sort of effect that we have on some other streets in town along that. And we're just calling it Volunteer Drive now, right?
Yeah.
So instead of that, we discussed in the DRC meeting and with the Planning Commission the idea that we just have some kind of diminutive, simple fence that almost blends into the woodwork that really would only exist maybe to keep kids out of the street. And from my perspective, I even wonder if that's really necessary. But kind of like we have along Volunteer Drive with the Parkview Townhomes project, not even a 6-foot tall wrought iron kind of a fence, but maybe just a 3-foot tall, something really simple. As I think you could see with the colored landscape image that they had, this is going to be uniformly maintained. At least from what we're seeing here, it looks like it's going to be pretty lavishly planted, lots of trees, shrubs, different things like that. And we'd like to maintain visibility into that space. So keeping it open, from my perspective, is a really big deal. So that kind of open fence, not only along Volunteer Drive, but also South Lane. And for that matter, if we do any fencing over on Bradford Lane, same kind of thing there. Is that kind of what?
Yep, thank you. I wasn't sure on Volunteer. I couldn't remember that.
We probably want to work with the applicant on this property line, do something a little bit different than this, though, as well. And I think there are a couple of different things there that we can talk about that won't cause them any concern.
So the wrought iron, everywhere else Dave just said. This is a sample of the pavilion style that we're looking at with the kind of a rustic rural feel. Any questions?
Gotta be proud of
Tractor
you.
go with it? I saw a tractor in the picture.
Yeah.
Anything you show on there, that has to be there. So,
There's 2 tractors.
all right, thanks. Okay, any questions or comments about this proposal? If there isn't, I would entertain a motion.
There was some discussion in planning and zoning about mitigation to the property owners east of you and trying to control light pollution. I'm not sure your light plan and everything else, but trying to keep that as much as you can.
Yeah, that came up in planning. Yeah. From our perspective, I mean, we have to work with the city and their ordinances and their, what they're going to want us to do. But from our perspective, we are more than willing to entertain whatever the city will allow. We've talked about hooded streetlights. Maybe Bradford Lane can even go unlit. I don't know. But that, I mean, I can't speak for the city and what they're going to allow. But from the developer standpoint, we're more than willing to entertain any options that are feasible to help that situation. The developments along, or the houses along Bradford Lane, those are backyards, so they're set as far back as they can be from Bradford Lane to help with that too. But yeah,
Pretty good.
And this was originally discussed as, was it 55 and older? And
yeah,
it is, that's still that way? Okay.
Mike, you just had your 20-year reunion, but pretty soon.
I'm getting close.
You're getting there.
Yeah. There's been a few 55 and older people ask me about this development, but
Really, did I talk to you?
you talked to me, yeah.
Just checking.
I guess that's Dave, it sounds like you've got it figured out a little bit, is monitoring with traffic studies of what would be acceptable getting to the 51st unit. And yeah, substantial improvements to, you guys know that it's named after you as well. What Bradford Lane would need to be to not have a car in the pit there, and adding people, too many more people until there's a decent way to get those people in and out. That would be a frustration for a homeowner for sure if it gets to be too many of them piled up on small roads still there.
Right.
Right?
I think a decent way for people to get in and out. And that's the best way I could characterize it today. I don't know what that might mean exactly in terms of specific improvements. And it might even be to River Bottoms Road. You know, I mean, if Bradford Lane were built completely as a full public street, it still is tying into River Bottoms Road, you know, pretty tiny little facility there.
Which is a county road.
Today, I think it's a county road, certainly south of Bradford Lane, yes. I don't know if with the annexation we didn't take the intersection. We didn't take the intersection. We're on this side. And you can see that part of it's Spanish Fork on the
Yeah.
west and part of it, the county's been maintaining it historically.
It's been a big issue, right? I think something we've been not necessarily beating you guys up over, but something that's been addressed over and over again, right? That intersection's a problem.
And it's been improved to some extent, recently.
I grew up on a county road that was surrounded on both sides of the city road. Maybe this is more of a Chris discussion, who left the building maybe, but, oh, he is there? He's hiding. Sorry,
He
Chris.
just moved.
Yeah, unassuming Chris. But these public streets that are going to be created in this development, where our city equipment's going to plow them and everything else, I would hope they don't lift up their plows at the intersection of county, but
Yeah, our policy is leave plows down if we're on state roads, county roads, or any roads. We help out, and they do the same. They do the
it
same.
may have been my last name that they picked it up in front of my house.
There's reasons.
It's good to point out that we are starting a traffic study on this intersection. We'll have a steering committee with citizens and staff to come up with some good recommendations on how to make that safer. It's actually a really hazardous intersection right now. We'll include the county in that since it's currently in the county, but it really affects Spanish Fork residents more than than anyone, it seems like.
So that's what I'm getting at. I'm assuming it's in the motion that we would make, but I'm not comfortable going past the 51st unit until we have a study to show us what.
So there's
what that
two,
impact's
there's
gonna
two
be.
issues on the number of units, and that's what Dave was saying. The one issue is we have to have two outlets. So, you know, there's one outlet, there's another outlet that accounts for, and I think it's 35 units. You have to have two outlets. But the traffic study for this annexation said that after 50 units, then you have to have this outlet, because South Lane level of service gets down to a level F, and so it says before you can go past 50, you have to have that access moved up. So.
And our Firefly friend, was it Garcia? Where is their property on this one?
Yep,
right there. Okay.
And this is there. Maybe along those lines, Brandon, just maybe the timing's fortuitous that we listened to Ms. Garcia's presentation and what she was doing this year. One of the things she talked about is light pollution, something that I think we could maybe put the applicant on the spot here and say, I think one of the things you talked about was having some trees as they start to grow would create some light shielding. And I know from some of the conversations, even comments about the lights at the sports park, which are a long ways away, right? But you can, I know that she's talked about those in some settings. But if we could plant some trees on the east side of the road, it's not city property, it's not the Bradford's property, so it would require the cooperation of the landowners on that side of the road. But if this development on the west side, we're willing to participate in providing some trees and things like that. I don't know what your interest is in that, but I think one of the best things that we can do for this property, rather than put all of our eggs into one basket, that this stuff must always and only bear, maybe the light saving measures or whatever. If we could do something on the other side of the road, and that may be something. So I don't know if you, as one of the landowners, you get to maybe have, part in that. But if we could plant some trees right there, and if the applicant would be party to, in part providing some or all, whatever we can work out, that would be something that you guys would say you would be willing to do. I don't know if that's something we can compel, but it sounds like you're willing, so that may be great. So that may be a good solution to start growing a little bit of a visual barrier that can be, I think we can protect the east side more on the east side of the road, where the property owners have that land, rather than tying the hands of eventually the other landowners on the west
I know
side.
Chris and I have had some discussion about, and he came up with some really good ideas that we would like to get with you and discuss, that light pollution and some issues. I know, a couple of months ago or last month, we talked about this, and so, he did, every once in a while he comes up with a pretty good solution.
I'll tell you, when he was at a Firefly tour, and Seth showed up too, and when his little boys were running out chasing fireflies, he turned to me and he said, "I just got goosebumps." So until you experience it, you see the magic of it, you don't become so committed. So that's why he's more committed now.
Yeah.
That's what was neat about your presentation, I think. Your family probably was it your grandpa that was digging basements in Spanish Fork? I mean, how cool. They must have probably went through similar processes of this. Here we are developing homes back then. How neat, So thanks for your presentation. That was neat.
Well, and I'd be in favor in getting that done getting those negotiations done as quick as we can, so those years have as many maturing years as they can by the time there's development next to the trees, right?
Well, in that vein, Firefly.org, one of their recommendations is that during the period of time when they are most active, their mating season, as was discussed, if you keep lights on outside your house, in your garden, or yard at night, you may unknowingly be contributing. All you need to do is turn off exterior lights in the evenings when fireflies are active. And so there may be a partnership between the HOA education as to, a resource that's there in the area, and I don't know how willing. I've never lived in an HOA, so I don't know how restrictive they are or aren't on what you can and can't do, but that may be a possible solution, is that the members of the HOA know and understand during this sliver of time that they don't leave exterior lights on. Just throwing that out there for discussion, as the players go through that.
Yeah, I think it's the light. One good thing is those are the backs of everything. Yeah. So
Yeah, that makes a big difference.
the HOA could have a study night. There's less of a light.
It'd be like Tucson, Arizona. They have a down light. All the lights have to be down, shot down, because they have the big telescope there, and so it's kind of similar to that. Okay, moving on. If there's any other questions or comments on this, I'd entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the Annie Acres preliminary plat.
Second.
A motion by Councilman Gordon, a second by Councilman Argyle. All in favor, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Passes. Thanks, guys.
Bert and Dean look so cute, like they're going to Sadie Hawkins. Did you
gee,
notice?
you
He wore the same shirt.
Oh, my God.
Oh, he did. Oh, don't act like you didn't plan it, Bert.
How about the shoes?
Yeah, the shoes.
It's the uniform.
Hey.
The bottoms of their shoes, I can see from here, they're the same tread.
Yeah, you better leave before it gets too thick here. Yeah. Yeah, you don't need to stay any longer and listen to that abuse.
You're upset.
All right, Brody Smith, preliminary plat.
The zoning was changed a couple of months ago to R130, so this could happen, so that they could subdivide one 30,000 square foot lot from a bigger 10-acre parcel. There's an issue with an annexation that's being worked out right now, and provided that gets addressed, staff has no concerns at all, recommending that the proposed subdivision creating their, is Lot 2, be approved, and that is our recommendation tonight.
Great. Any questions? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion.
I move we approve the Bodie Smith preliminary plat.
Second.
Got a motion by Councilman Mendenhall, second by Councilmember Beck. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Barrett annexation.
This is for further. There we go.
Yeah, let me scroll down.
Late breaking agenda item here. This is proposed acceptance of this annexation. Subject properties here are actually located pretty much immediately west or maybe southwest of the Annie's Acres project that you just looked at. Make a long story short, staff sees no reason to do anything but accept this proposed annexation for further study, and that's what we hope the council does tonight.
Okay. Any questions, comments?
Down by the river?
Yep.
Buy it, but it used to be a big red barn.
Great.
It'd be interesting to ask any resident if they think this area isn't in the city limits already.
Yeah, it's kind of weird that it's not. It's a little cleanup.
Already being served by some city services even, things like that.
Great. I'd entertain a motion.
I move we accept the Barrett annexation for further study.
Second.
Got a motion by Councilman Scobes, a second by Councilman Mendenhall. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes. Airport transfer agreement. Please.
We recommend that we table this for another 2 weeks. We had just one last issue to hammer out, and Mr. Baker and I met with Springville staff this afternoon, got all the heavy lifting out of the way, but in order to get all the legal I's and T's written and I's dotted, I think it'd be better to put this to the 21st.
All right. Well,
Is that all?
Yeah, they're all individual, but all together at the same time.
And do you need a resolution to table those three?
No.
Just,
We can just-
excuse me, a motion.
No.
I move that we table Item D, E, and F.
Second.
Till next city council meeting.
Got a motion by Councilman Gordon, second by Councilman Mendenhall. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Resolution 18-13, establishing a formula for the amount of water to be transferred to the city upon development. I assume Chris is going to talk to us about that.
Okay, so with this last impact fee update, we have removed water rights as an impact fee and just have it as an exaction. So you just pass the ordinance that requires that, but the ordinance refers to a resolution that could be changed from time to time by the city council as perhaps different water rights become available or usable. And so this initial resolution lists the water rights that we allow, and then how many acre feet of water per share we attribute to those water rights. And this is a bit different than what a lot of people who own water rights might think come with their right, because we base it upon the amount of water that is provided in an 80% precipitation year. This is in accordance with recommendations from the state engineer, and it basically values a water right by what it produces in a dry year. In a wet year, everyone has so much water that really water rights don't become much of an issue at all. The true value of water is when it's a drought condition, what can we exact out of that water? And we feel like that's how we should plan. We should get enough water so that in a dry year we have enough. And so the amounts are listed there, and then also listed here is the formula for calculating how much water we require from a development based upon lot size. We used to get complaints that we required the same amount of water per lot, no matter if it was a 2-acre lot or a 1/4-acre lot. And so this fixes that. Also, one thing that is still in place, because we have so much water in the city, we actually only exact water for outdoor use. We're not yet to the point where we've used up enough reserves that we need to start exacting water for indoor use yet. But I'm sure that will be coming. But the city has been very wise to acquire water, usually in an opportunistic way when a large amount of water becomes available. Because of how solvent the city has been in the past, we've been able to take advantage of a lot of opportunities to buy water, and because of that, it actually is cheaper to develop in Spanish Fork water-wise, and so that's what this resolution is. It also has in here a formula for when this affects a development. So in item 2 it says, all final plats submitted before July 10th, 2018, after July 10th, this will be applicable for, and then final plats that were submitted before July 11th and recorded before October 11th, they can choose between the old method of water exaction and this one. And so that's a question we get all the time. When am I vested? This clarifies all the vesting, and it's really helpful for our people in the office when they have to answer those questions.
So when we approve a subdivision plat like we've done tonight, a citizen shouldn't be concerned that that's taxing our water system, because number one, we're making them bring wet water, and number two, they're paying the impact fees for that water.
Yes, all the water rights listed here are quote-unquote wet water. I think Mayor Brailsford coined that term, and basically what he meant by it is water that we can actually use, that is really there in the stream. We can divert it, we can use it, and so that's the only type of water we allow.
Good. Any other questions, comments? If not, I'd entertain a motion.
Make a motion to approve Resolution 1813, establishing the formula for the amount of water to be transferred to the city upon development.
Second.
A motion by Councilman Mendenhall, a second by Councilman Scobes. This will be a roll call vote. Councilman Gordon.
Aye.
Councilman Mendenhall.
Aye.
Councilman Scobes.
Aye.
Councilman Argal.
Aye.
Councilmember Beck.
Aye.
Passes. FY 219, budget approval.
Didn't we do that? Done.
Done. Well, what's it on my agenda for?
You did it. You just did it earlier.
Bingo.
Remember you had a public hearing, and somebody here jumped and said, I make a motion.
He kinda
Serious?
pushed me into it. He said after that great
After that
explanation.
10-minute dialogue, I said, let's move on. Okay, changing the sewer rates in Salem.
Couple of
We
weeks-
can do that?
No.
Oh, come on.
We are not
It
changing
says
the
right
rates.
here, we can do that.
It says the rates are changing in Salem.
Oh.
So a couple of council meetings ago, we talked about, presented some information to the council regarding changing, let me rephrase that so it's not confusing, sewer rates that are changing in Salem City and how actually they are impacting some residents in Spanish Fork. From that meeting, great discussion. We appreciated the thoughts that we got out of the council. We had a handful of questions that were asked, and we said we would answer. We asked Melanie Davidson, sorry, Melanie. Okay, Melanie, Melanie, our intern, she got married.
Way to go.
We asked Melanie, our intern, getting her master's degree at BYU in public administration, to do some of that research, and she's provided a memo to the council and is prepared tonight to make a presentation to the city council. I think it's especially wonderful that Melanie is tonight attending one of her first city council meetings ever and is learning from one of the greatest councils in the history of the world.
That's true.
Wow.
Did you hear the trumpets playing?
I'm going to let Melanie come up and...
Yeah, I think it's time to have her come up.
That was... There should be like a red carpet now and stuff.
Take all the time you need.
Oh dear. So your main questions, if you want to go down to the next page, were just about how many homes are in the area. So currently we have 66 homes that are on the Salem sewer system. And then these developments, Weaver's Vineyard and Leland Meadows, a lot of it is contingent on if the lift station is built. So if the gravel pit is able to find a new place to relocate, we'll be able to build new subdivisions. So the people who would be on Salem Sewer would increase unless we build the lift station. If you go on to the next page, thanks. It just kind of outlines how much each of our recommendations would be depending on the scenario. We looked at 3 different recommendations. The first one is to do nothing, is to continue to pass on the cost of Salem Sewer to the residents who are on it. The second one is to subsidize the difference. So this is when we're holding them at what they're paying right now, and then we just pay the difference between whatever Salem Sewer's rate. And then the last one is to treat them like Spanish Fork sewer customers and subsidize that difference. So those cost tables are there. So do you have any questions?
Wait a minute. You were able to accomplish what Chris Thompson has never been able to. You could do it 4 more times and still be under the time limit that Chris Thompson usually takes. I am so impressed.
You notice I'm not the one that's saying that.
I am so impressed. Am I the only one that's impressed?
No.
That is amazing.
You're verbalizing what we're thinking.
Okay, sorry, Chris. Thinking out loud. So mean.
All right.
Sorry.
So, what are you proposing that action do we need to take tonight?
Well, I have a question. When is Salem deciding? Isn't it tonight, tomorrow night?
No,
No. It's done.
Their rates, they passed a resolution months ago to increase a little bit each year until they get to the time of surplus.
Travis needs you to talk. Microphone. Sorry, Junior. I'm sorry. We invite, yes.
Several
Please.
months ago, Salem adopted a resolution that increases their sewer rates a little bit each year until it gets up to the maximum, which will be about $55 a month. And that should hit when their sewer plant's constructed. They had their groundbreaking last week. It's about a 2-year project, so that resolution takes it up. What was it, Melanie, 34 this year, or 43, something like that. And it goes up again next year on July 1, so that's a graduated thing that's already happened.
Are we supposed to decide on one tonight?
We would prefer that. Hopefully, you've had a chance to review some of this in the memo. Let's see, is this page 1? Go up to page 1 for me, if you would, please, Scott. Currently, the rate for those 66 residents is going up, could go up from $34 to $43.50. Based on the direction we got from you in that previous discussion, you said, let's not change anything, at least for the first billing cycle, which is right now. So we didn't, for the July cycle, we didn't make any changes for those residents. We can go into effect with the August bill. We bill in arrears, so that will come at the end of this month for the month of August. Like Melanie said in her memo, the staff there's some light division in what we should do. I don't think there's a real strong sense one way or the other. I think, for me personally, there's a discomfort level in treating these residents significantly differently than the rest. And that's why Melanie's presented 3 different options. If you go back down to the second one, that second last table right there, do what we've been doing. There are the 66 homes that are currently on that flow to Salem. We'll pass that rate on. It's what Salem charges us. We can continue to do that for those 66 homes. Or we can make some changes, and I don't really like using the word subsidized because I think that's maybe in this sense a little bit off, but
and I agree with that, because technically the mayor's subsidizing Stacy because she lives the furthest away from the sewer plant.
Right.
And she uses more pipe length than he does.
How rude.
How rude.
Well, thank you, Mayor.
Sorry to point that out.
Hey, you received a note?
But Chris pointed that out to me, and right? Like, how are you ever going to dial that in and say, well,
exactly.
That's not fair?
So I think, whether we go with recommendation 2 or 3, Seth's recommendation is we do something other than 1. I'm completely comfortable with 2, and I'm completely comfortable with 3. 3 is actually pretty easy to operate, because no matter what happens, today the change will happen and they'll always be the same as a Spanish Fork resident going forward. So 3 is easy, but if it takes a couple of years before development happens out there in Leland, then it may be a few years that there's a little bit of an offset from the rate that this particular home is paying and what Salem is billing us for that particular home. But if we look at this as a system-wide expense, then it's not that big of an expense.
So say this goes on, and so this development doesn't develop out, in 2 years come and the sewer plant goes online, do we continue feeding to their new sewer plant?
Yeah, so we cannot make a change in the sewer system until a lift station is constructed. Yeah.
And that would require either that subdivision or these other developments doing something in the future.
It would require the subdivision called Weaver's Vineyard. The gravel pit it's the first domino that must change.
Okay.
Yeah, because the sewer system will run through that subdivision, and probably most importantly to this conversation, from there it'll go under Highway 6 and then across the field under Spanish Fork River and connect to the sewer system on South Lane. So the lift station cannot be built until it has a path to go somewhere, and that path is through Weaver's Vineyard, then frankly over the river, through the woods.
Grandma's house or
No,
Stacy's?
to Grandma's sewer.
I'm for the
So
third.
that's, and I mean, we can always change. If it turns out that development completely stops and this is going on forever, we can take a different course of action. I don't know that that'll happen, but I mean, you and I don't know that.
So it's safe to say we're currently doing 2 right now.
No, we're currently doing one.
Yeah, but
So we're currently simply,
A hybrid.
we're passing the cost. What Salem is charging us, we are passing that on to
we
that
are
home.
exactly. Okay,
Yeah,
that's
we are
right.
doing that today.
Okay. And decided to do that for one more month, or no, we decided to.
Okay, now I know what you're saying. So
Okay.
yes, today we're doing
Today
two
we are
because
doing
we froze the rate at yesterday's rate.
Okay,
And
that's-
haven't passed on the increment, sorry.
That's what I remembered from our last meeting.
Yep. So yes, we are doing two.
It's kind of where I'm landing right now. I don't know how everybody else is feeling in number 2.
Okay, I got
Stop
a 3.
it.
I've got
Sorry.
Stop it.
Sorry.
I just wanted to say that. He likes 3.
I have option 3 and I have an option 2. What say you?
I'm saying 3.
I got a 3.
I say 3.
3.
I'm happy either way.
Well, I know you're happy. So what I need is a motion.
He's not even looking my way.
I'll make a motion to approve number 3.
I don't want a motion from him. I'm looking for a motion.
Go ahead, Chad.
Did you? Okay, I got a motion for option number 3 from Councilman Argal.
And I'll second that.
She's a happy girl. And I've got a second by Councilmember Beck. So, all in favor, of option 3, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Opposed.
There you go.
Nay.
That passes. Nice job.
That's the second time, right?
Yeah.
No, I was with 3.
I would entertain a motion.
I move we go into closed session for land transaction and reasonably intimate litigation.
Got a motion by Councilman Gordon, a second by Councilman Mendenhall. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.